Hello and welcome to Rewind Reviews, a movie podcast where we take a look at movies from our past and ask the age-old question, was that any good? Now, often, that's a big question mark. And we go into a movie going like, who knows if that'll hold up? But because I see this movie, not religiously, like not like really specifically, but every couple of years, I reckon I end up cracking this one out. So I know this movie intimately. I was quoting lines as they were coming up. Nadia reports I'm a joy to watch this movie with. But I know a lot of the dialogue. I know the scenes beat to beat. Like I know this movie very, very intimately. So there wasn't much of a question for me. It was more a question of how does it work? Why does it work? What's so fun about this movie? That's kind of what I approached going into it with. But yeah, we're doing Spider-Man, the Sam Raimi, and I found out, Chris, I have spent my entire life mispronouncing his name. We call him Sam Raimi. It's Raimi. Raimi. Like Ray.
Yeah, I think most people.
Yeah.
What have you been saying? No, that's...
It's wrong.
Yeah, that's wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. Found that out this week. My whole life pronouncing his name wrong. Don't know why I was doing it. Didn't even notice I was doing it. Thought I was saying it the same as everyone else. It's Raimi.
Well, I don't want to criticise ourselves or downplay ourselves, but I imagine he's not heard any of our work, so I'm sure you're fine.
Yeah, I doubt I've offended him. No, I'm more just annoyed at myself, because one of those things where it's like, how did I not notice? But anyway, it's the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy. We're doing the first one this week, and then we're gonna crack on through the sequels to wrap up this series of rewind reviews. But again, we don't normally approach a rewind review with any kind of confidence that the movie still functions. It occasionally happens, like when we watch like a Star Wars or a Back to the Future. But it is a rarity to be going into all of these with confidence.
I don't remember going into The Empire Strikes Back nervous that it wouldn't hold up.
Yeah, right. Or Jurassic Park. Guess what, guys? Good movie. So, yeah. I mean, we should do history, I guess. It's a bit tricky to do history with something like Spider-Man because it's Spider-Man. But where do you stand on this movie? Did you watch it in cinemas? Yeah,
I did. I thought watching watching it and thinking about it in context of this podcast. I thought, was this the first film that me and my mates ever saw literally on our own?
Yes.
Which may sound weird, but the town I grew up in didn't have a cinema, so you had to you had to get a parent to drive you, or you had to get the train to a town 40 minutes away, which was bigger and had a cinema. So I would have been around 12, 13 when this film came out. So that would I think make sense. But I looked at the dates, and Attack of the Clones did come out just before, weeks before this film. And I know we saw Attack of the Clones on our own. And there might be a film from the year from 2001 that we saw. It's definitely one of the first films that sort of me and my friends actively took ourselves to see. Hopped on a train and went to see it. And I knew of Spider-Man, probably not as intimately as you. I don't think I went in knowing the beats, whereas I imagine you're a bit more of a comic book guy and you've got a bit more history with the cartoon. So I imagine you went in, waiting for Uncle Ben to die, for example, which, happens very early. So spoilers, but I kind of feel like it would be weird to
if you've got
give spoiler warnings
to
on
this
Spider-Man,
point
but anyway.
in pop culture. If you're in tuned enough with pop culture to be listening to this podcast and don't know that Uncle Ben dies, then I really need to meet you. I have questions. I have so many questions.
Yeah, that's fair. So I don't know if I knew the beats, but I remember loving the film, and I remember being particularly even at that age thinking, well, at that age probably thought it was a bolder choice than I necessarily feel now, but I remember being really not affected by, but taken by the end of the movie and the resolution of the villain. I was like, whew, that felt bold to me as a kid. That felt like a bold choice. I wasn't used to seeing that. So I remember that. I remember the fucking news round. Sorry, excuse my language. I remember the news round articles. Sorry, not articles, like footage. And it being maybe even on the main news, but I certainly seem to remember, in my mind at least, a news round article on it. So for those that don't know, news round was like a kids' news show, basically. And they did news relevant to kids, and it aired within the sort of BBC's children's programming. And there was a bit of a hoo-ha in the UK about how kids wanted to go and see Spider-Man, but the film was a 12. And that meant that kids couldn't go and see Spider-Man. And my memory of it, probably I assume maybe covered in the Triv, is that they introduced 12A in the UK in part because of this film.
Yeah.
12A meaning that if you were below 12, but you had your parent or guardian with you, and your parent or guardian said they're okay to see this film, you could then go in and see a 12 even if you weren't 12. And my memory of it was because of Spider-Man and the hoo-ha generated because of it.
We can cover that now if we want to get a tiny piece of triv out of the way. I can absolutely. You're 100% exactly right. You remember it spot on. So the film caused some controversy. The BBFC, who are the British Board of Film Certification, they're the guys that decide what rating a film is and whether it's appropriate for the different age groups. Now, it's not a perfect system, but I do think it's probably sensible to not let children go see, Terminator. Do you know what I mean? I don't think these are perfect rules, and you're never going to have a perfect system, but I do think guidance for parents is a good idea. I've always felt that, even though I don't agree with all of the decision making, on the whole, having a system for rating things to give parents guidelines for whether it's appropriate for their children is a great idea. My parents, and I say this, without judgment, were clueless about the media I consumed. They had no clue. They thought RoboCop was a kid's film, and it's definitely not. I watched it very young. They basically gave me that. They were like, yeah, watch RoboCop. That movie is deeply inappropriate for a child of the age that I saw it, because my parents didn't know. So I'm for, in theory, a BBFC. But as we know, and as America knows from their rating system, the MPAA, this is an imperfect system, often doesn't work. Particularly America have trouble because I think it's, I think they often... I'm not going to say it because I actually don't know if that's true. My impression was that the people in the MPA or whatever it's called, a lot of them were come from a religious background, meaning their choices were maybe more focused on their faith than practical what's appropriate for children. But I'm going to take that back because I actually don't know if that's 100% true. I remember there being a documentary about it, but I don't remember it. I think it was called This Film Is Not Yet Rated, but I've not seen it in 15 years, so I'm not going to... Yeah. But basically, Spider-Man comes out, and they went on record, the BBFC, when they gave it the 12, saying it was the most violent movie they had ever seen aimed at young audiences. The distributor requested them to reassess and look at a PG, and they denied this due to the levels of, and this is the quote, personal violence and prevalent revenge themes. Now, the movie comes out with Go on.
I don't think that's incorrect.
No, just say. No, they're correct. I think the issue stems from the structure of it, because for the listeners, I don't know how this works in the States, but in the UK, at the time, these were hard age ratings. So if it was a 12, you could not go in, parent or not, to see the movie if you were under 12, which would create a whole problem, because realistically... Who has ID at the age of 12? You might have a passport if you've travelled, but not everyone travels. So it becomes like, what have you got? Does your school give you an ID at 12? No, probably not. What ID? You got a driver's license, 12-year-old child? So it presents a real problem. And as someone who's worked in cinemas in my youth, no, definitely not. It's really impractical. When you're the poor fucker tearing the ticket, it's a nightmare. So 12 was a hard 12, 15 was a hard 15, 18 was a hard 18, meaning you could not see the movie unless you were over that age. Go on.
Quick sidebar, have you got an example of a film you tried to get into and got turned away from? We tried to get
Fast
into
and the Furious,
and
I think.
Didn't manage it. Right, nice.
I think we tried to get in one of the first Fast and the Furious movies and we didn't. Yeah. But what was your scary movie? Nice. Yeah. That's a good choice.
Scary movie. Tried to go see Scary Movie and very much were not allowed in.
Yeah. Did you do the thing where you made your voice a little deeper and you tried to stand on your tiptoes so from behind the counter you seemed a bit taller when you were buying the ticket?
Yeah, but if memory serves, I think maybe some of us, including myself, were old enough but some
That's
of the
worst.
group weren't.
That is
So yeah, I think we ended up going back to my friend's house and listening to the Tenacious D album.
Fair enough.
It's sort of,
I remember a lady
Anyway.
screaming at me, a quite young person. She should have known better, that I'd ruined her son's birthday party because she'd brought a bunch of 12-year-olds to see a 15 film. And I refused them. And at first she was like, no, they're old enough. And I was like, can I see ID? I was like, and I was really kind. I was like, I know kids. Kids don't hang out with kids that are significantly older or younger than them. I'm like, there's a group of like 10 boys. I'm like, if I can see one ID that's over 15, I'll let the whole group in. I'll make you that deal right now. I thought that was quite reasonable. She got one of the kids to text their parents and send them a photo of their passport. The kid was 12. And I was like, why would you show me this? This proves it is correct that they cannot see this movie. And she's going crazy and telling me I've ruined the birthday party. And I had to bite my tongue from saying, no, you did when you bought tickets and picked to take them to a movie without doing any research, you crazy person.
Because also, I get a group of 12-year-olds going to the cinema with a family member. Like I think we did. I think we saw Bruce Almighty with my friend's dad. Like I can name films that I saw with parents' dads. But we weren't. I don't mean to be a dick, but we weren't doing it. We weren't doing it at 15. Like that wasn't like, you know what I mean? We weren't popping to see a 15 with a parent. Unless it was like going as a family or whatever.
Sure.
Yeah, that's
but
mad.
What that changed was that for Spider-Man came out 12, hard 12. A lot of people had children who'd seen all the adverts. Hey, there's a new colourful cartoon, superhero movie I want to see. Took their children to the cinema and were denied access. This caused a lot of problems. So the BBFC, sorry, not the MPPA, whatever, the BBFC, they invented a brand new rating for starting with a small re-release of this movie, 12A. Which meant if you're on your own, you have to be over 12, but the A means accompanied. So if you're under 12, you can still see the movie, but only with an adult, which I thought was very, very reasonable, and they still use it to this day. The problem has become...
Yeah, I agree.
The problem has become parents who don't understand that is 12 only. There isn't a 15A. So what has started to happen, or at least is starting to happen... in the immediate years following this, was parents bringing 12-year-olds to 15s and expecting the same rules, because if the 12A is a 12A, a 15 must be the same rules, right? Or they can come if they're with me. And it's like, that's not how it works. Unfortunately, the 15 in the UK is still a hard 15, and cinemas can be fined or can lose their licenses. I mean, that sort of stuff is very rare because it's, one, impossible to catch, but two, how do you prove it happened? Like, it's one of those things that's a bit tricky. They tend to say, I've heard rumors that they send out like mystery shoppers to catch cinemas out, but I never witnessed this in my time. Never once did I come across someone testing our ability to check IDs. But anyway, so yeah, that's Spider-Man's weird situation. They put a new marketing. They actually put more money into marketing when the 12A was reintroduced in August, a few months later. They said it's back out in cinemas. Children can now go see the film with their parents. It was like a big advisory thing. So, I don't know I can't think of a movie we've had on this podcast where we can actually say it made literal changes to the law about the ages that children are allowed to see movies. But yeah, Spider-Man is one of them. So I'm glad we covered that here.
And it was just a big memory, and then had the film on video, obviously, and loved it. And then I think this is usually with these we do the whole trilogy sort of in one, but actually, very rarely do we do trilogies. I suppose Austin Powers, Lord of the Rings, but where we could have seen them one by one in the cinema. So maybe we'll do it one by one with Spider-Man. Especially because obviously the other two films are quite distinctive, especially in terms of quality. So yeah, sticking with just Spider-Man 1. I didn't necessarily know the beats because at the time, unless you'd seen the cartoon or read the comics, you maybe wouldn't. It wasn't as pop culture-y. So I remember being surprised by the beats, loving the movie, and then replayed it constantly on video. And of course, the other big thing that everyone our age remembers from the movie. And let's be honest, what are we? We're 17 minutes in, and neither of us have done it yet. So may I be the first on this podcast to do it now and simply go, I am so high, I can hear heaven. What a fucking tune. I'm swearing again, but it's worth it. So yeah, obviously banger as well.
Yeah,
big part of our youth.
They say that a hero can save us,
Chad
Chris.
Kroeger featuring it's a Chad Kroeger solo song. Although
is it?
Don't get me wrong, I think he's dining out with it. I'm pretty sure it's probably still a Nickelback set list, but technically it wasn't a Nickelback song. It was a
song, is it?
Chad Kroeger song.
So my history is
what's your history?
A little different in that, like, I went into this with like as much knowledge as a child of that age can have. Basically, like 94, 95, the cartoon is airing, and I'm living in Ireland at the time, and I fall in love with the 90s Spider-Man cartoon. It's just the fucking best, and I love it to bits. And I watch that. I record it on TV. I replay it over and over again. It's like my favorite thing. And then we're in like a corner shop, like I don't know, I guess in America, like a bodega, is that the right term? Like a store on the corner that just sells like, convenience things. A convenience store. Yeah, that's the word. That's probably the American word for it. Convenience store. And the guy has a little rack of magazines, and at the bottom there is something called Astonishing Spider-Man. And I think it's Spidey and the Green Goblin on the front cover, and my fucking mind exploded, and I was like, I need this immediately. And so begins my love of comics, literally from that moment, through Spider-Man and through that comic. And I've still got that issue. I still have that bagged and boarded. I have 2 copies of it, actually, because years later I tried to complete the set from the Astonishing Spider-Man, which is a weird UK reprint of the Spider-Man comics from America, like a year behind the actual story. It was really strange, but it might have been more than a year behind, actually. But I found a job lot of those on eBay to complete my set, and it came with the one I'd already bought. So I now have like the copy I bought as a child, which I still own, from the 90s, and the weird second version I got from some guy on eBay. But yeah, huge fan of the character, read through all of them. Then I got hold of the Essential Spider-Man paperbacks, which are like books telling the original origin stories. It's all like the first run of comics that Stan Lee and Steve Ditko did. Just very familiar with the character, absolutely obsessed with the character. And then, of course, this movie starts being advertised. And, I mean, I don't know what the polite equivalent of just being like, I basically shat my pants with excitement. I couldn't wait. There are only a few times in my childhood I was this excited for a movie. Does that make sense? Like, I can only point to a few. Like, Phantom Menace was one. My God, the excitement for Phantom Menace was palpable. And this is another. There are a few. I'm sure if I think about it more, I'll remember more of them. But I was like absolutely I was basically shaking with excitement when we went into the cinema to watch this movie. And then the movie is the movie. It is a glorious exploration of that original story. And then the minute the movie finishes, I want to see it again. And my parents knew a guy down the pub that could do like bootleg DVDs of movies that were still in cinemas. It's like someone has gone into the cinema and filmed it with a camera, and then they've burned that to a disc and all. And I remember getting a copy before it was out on DVD of this VCD with the movie on it. It was on 2 parts across 2 discs, half on one disc, half on the other. And I watched the shit out of that too. But it was like really blown out. The colors were awful. You couldn't always make out what was happening. Like, when she gets the sign that says your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, the white was so blown out you couldn't read the text. So for the longest time, I did not know what that note said. I didn't quite remember it from when I saw it in the cinema, and I only had that copy to go off. So yeah, I mean, a huge fan of this movie, and I've come back to these, every, as I said earlier, 3-4 years ish ever since. Like these are classics I come back to all the time. So yeah, huge fan. Obviously, put my bias on my shoulder. Spider-Man's my favorite superhero by far, followed by Batman. So it's like this is up my street no matter what. Do you know what I mean? Like this is yeah, I was bound to be into this. So, with that in mind, Chris, how was your viewing of the movie on this occasion?
Well, I don't like the fact that I had to wait until, a couple of minutes into the credits to hear Hero by Chad Kroeger and Joey Scott. Obviously, I was upset about that. I'm so high. But otherwise,
I'll be honest with you, Chris. I was quite relieved I didn't have to hear that song very much in the movie.
Oh, but heaven, no heaven, don't hear me.
Should we just review Spider-Man 2 instead?
Huh?
We just review Spider-Man 2
I don't think Spider-Man 2 doesn't have a
I know.
sort of iconic song, does it?
Yeah, that's why. That's why I'm choosing.
If you think that attitude is going to make me not sing it throughout the entire trilogy, then you are sadly mistaken.
No, you're right. The real strategy here would be for me to never mention it again and hope you forget. That's the move if I really want you to stop. But yeah,
I looked it up, by the way. I looked it up. There was a bit of a gap where Nickelback didn't play it, but it's sort of. Oh, here we go. So, they played it a lot in 2002 to 2004, and then there's sort of a massive gap where they didn't really play it until 2015, where they brought it back to the set list, and they've played it pretty consistently ever since. So yeah, I did look that up. I loved it, man. It's brilliant. Like almost to the point where I don't have much to say. I think it functions as an origin story beautifully. It is really well structured. I love that there are elements of it that feel like a modern superhero movie, and actually elements of it that feel like a noughties pre-MCU superhero movie. And what I mean by that is, we have the fight in the wrestling ring, and we have obviously the Green Goblin blowing up shit. It's like an hour into the movie until we get our first sort of suited Spider-Man Green Goblin.
Yeah, it's like 55
fight.
minutes, I think.
Yeah, and obviously we've had a montage of him sort of saving shit and acting with great power and great responsibility. But I just kind of thought, I don't think, the modern sensibility of even an origin movie, they're finding excuses to, whack in fights early or start with a fight and flash back or something, whatever. I was really taken by the sort of the pace of it all and the structure of it, and I just thought, wow, it really is a perfect origin story for a superhero movie, and maybe arguably I'd have to really check this is probably too bold a statement, but maybe the first. Is it? I don't know. Possibly, because obviously I think X-Men is a little bit later than this, and to some degree the X-Men are established at the start of that movie. Tim Burton's Batman is already, he's fighting crime, isn't he? If memory serves, I'm pretty sure that movie opens with Batman.
Yeah, I guess so. It's been longer since I've seen Tim Burton's Batman. Those Batman movies should be on our list of trilogies. Actually, I don't think they are. They should be. Batman '89.
Well, they're not because it's a quadrilogy, isn't it? If you're doing a trilogy, I think Nolan's Batman is.
We could do them as a 4. That's fine. That's not going to hurt.
Oh yeah. No, that's fine. I'm pretty sure. Doesn't it open with?
I'm checking. I think it does too, but I'm not certain.
It might even be because I think it's Chris Fairbanks, but maybe he's in a later movie.
Yeah. They do his origin in flashbacks across the movie. When we start, he's already Batman. Yeah. I thought so.
Yeah.
The only reason I double checked is because I do remember that it has the iconic pearls hitting the ground, which it seems to be a legal requirement for all Batman movies now. If you're going to do Martha and Thingy Wayne's death, then you need pearls hitting the ground, or it doesn't count for some reason.
Yeah.
I don't know who made that law, but it's what we're stuck with. We had Blade, so maybe, there probably are examples. But I just was really, the thing I was particularly taken with in this rewatch was how he's Blade in the beginning of the Blade.
Is he? I don't know. I've never seen Blade.
Yeah, no, he's Blade at the
that's
beginning of
just
Blade. I'm sure of it, and they do his origin in flashbacks. Wow, you're right. None of these movies take a real chunk of time to do a proper origin. A lot of them sort of like they're nervous you'll get bored, and they jump you into the action and do it in flashback. You're absolutely right. That had never occurred to me. Daredevil does it. Daredevil does proper, but that's after this, right? Daredevil comes.
That's after this.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
And presumably they're emulating this formula for Daredevil because this worked quite well. But that has a proper like opening, 20, 30 minutes that sets him up, I think. My God.
Yeah, Daredevil's 2003. Yeah.
Sorry, I've just never thought about that. Yeah. So anyway, sorry, carry on with your point. I'm just... my mind is melting. I'd never realised.
Well, that was... and that was the main thing on this rewatch. Because obviously, it's brilliant. The cast are great. The cast are charming. And like I say, I got real nostalgia watching it. I was taken back to, how I felt about the Green Goblin stuff. I was... taken back to being in a cinema of boys fooling. I can't think of how to phrase this. I've dug myself a hole. Being in a cinema of just kids my age falling in love with Kirsten Dunst, who's obviously amazing in this movie.
Yeah.
And I just think, there was the nostalgia of watching the movie, and sort of how it felt when he suits up in the proper suit for the first time, and all of that sort of stuff, and that montage of him saving the day, Uncle Ben's death being really powerful. Obviously, like you said, the iconic lines that you just say along with them, most notably, with great power comes great responsibility, and I'm something of a scientist myself. Oh, I remember another real, nostalgia moment is... the blood dropping on the floor, and how tense that scene is, and how there's quite an insane amount of, for what looks like a drop as it falls, quite an insane amount of blood that lands on the floor. But anyway, and the intensity of Goblin realizing who he is, and so all the nostalgia, obviously, but in terms of kind of new critical thinking, because a lot of my from a review perspective, a lot of the stuff, as you said, I went into this movie with the cast are great. Toby's a really good Peter Parker. Looks a bit old. That's a bit weird. Shame they didn't spend more time in school.
My first note is, why is that adult man chasing a school bus? Should somebody call the police about this?
But all of that stuff you go into this movie with. Like I say, the big thing, because watching a movie from a rewind reviews perspective will always, you just are watching the movie differently, and it will always bring up stuff you didn't think before. And the one thing that really shone through with me with this movie is just how much of an origin story it is, and how much all of that really, really works. And I think, like you said earlier on, it's bizarre because, anyone thinking, oh, only one thing or whatever. I think there are probably only two movies that, maybe in your case there's more with Star Wars and stuff like that. I'd have to look at the list properly, but I would say there would only be two movies that I would have felt willing to give it a go in terms of blagging it, like not rewatching the movie and blagging it just from knowledge of the film. And obviously the other one is Back to the Future. So that's why I've only got one new thing, just because we're so familiar with this movie. But that one new thing I think is really important and really honourable, just how great that element of it works. So how did you feel on rewatch?
Yeah, it's interesting. There is always that slight. Even though I came into this saying I came in with confidence, and I did come in with confidence. I know that factually this is a good movie, but you do switch that storytelling part of your brain on, like that critical side of your brain when you're watching a movie for this podcast, and it is a different experience to some degree. But I think the problem with this movie is it's so good, it sucks you in and it makes you turn that part of your brain off, and that is a skill of its own. But I think the thing that I ended up coming away with thinking that I guess was, if we're talking about the new overriding thought, was that the movie's sincerity is its biggest strength. This movie is unapologetically exactly what it is. It's not embarrassed at the costume. It's not embarrassed to be colourful. It's not embarrassed to be heartfelt. It's not embarrassed to, focus on the emotions of the characters because they want to be cool. In fact, this movie admonishes that. Like, this movie tells you don't do that. The opening act of this movie is Peter getting the powers and having his initial instinct be, how can this get me a cool car? How can this, how can I beat up, well, not how can I, it ends up happening sort of by accident, it's kind of still Flash's fault, but I get to beat up the bully at school. He's abusing the power at the beginning and trying to be cool with it. And the movie teaches him very quickly that's not what we should do. And it's that brilliant line, which I almost think the line before the great power comes great responsibility line is even better, which is when he says, I think he says something like, just because you could beat Flash up doesn't mean you should. And that, I think, like, when you combine that with great power comes great responsibility, it's just such a powerful thing. And I think what's crazy is the movie is, like, absolutely sincere about everything it does. And it fully commits to no sense of irony whatsoever. And I think that's deeply charming because there is something sort of simplistic about the movie and all the characters and their goals, right? With Peter Parker, who's gained a lot of power and not sure what to do with it, and he wants to do good in the world. Ultimately, that's what we're doing, right? We have Norman Osborn, whose initial goal is very straightforward. He's trying to save his lab, right? But he goes too far, and he doesn't take the power he then gains. I mean, he goes insane, which kind of I always think it's tricky with the Green Goblin as a character. I like him less because he's like he's medically insane, which kind of like takes character growth out of it, because you're just like, well, he's a crazy person. He's got this dual personality, like he's not in control, which is sort of like, that's a shame, because I would almost like seeing him choose to, if we're seeing Spider-Man choose to use his power responsibly, I like the idea of putting him up against a villain who would choose to use his power irresponsibly. Whereas Norman's not really making choices, which I think does sort of weaken some of the messaging of the movie. But my point is, he's got a very simple goal. He's trying to save his lab, and he goes too far. I guess that's the moment, he uses his power irresponsibly, is in choosing to do the experiment on himself, instead of, quote unquote, going back to formula, that whole thing. But I that's what I came away from it from. It's just so unapologetic. It's colorful. It's fun. It's goofy when it wants to be goofy. It's tense when it wants to be tense. It's so dynamic in the way it's shot, because it's Sam Raimi, and he is just, the man's a genius. The man is a genius. His ability to communicate what's physically happening in interesting ways on screen is just unmatched. Even in simple scenes like the Thanksgiving scene where they're all sat at the around the table and Norman's figuring it out. The shots they choose to do, the close-ups, the putting the scar initially, the blood, just in the bottom corner of the frame. We don't zoom in on it for a good while, and that's like a really interesting hold, because then when we do zoom on it, it has impact, and that's the moment Norman puts it together. And then when we cut back to Norman, we're closer on him than we were in the previous shot. Between the sincerity of the movie and it trusting the material is good, and not feeling the need to make any major changes, and being shot so wonderfully and in such an interesting way, it is basically a perfect telling of this origin story. And I think the problem in terms of reviewing the movie, and the reason you watch the movie and go, I don't have a lot to say about it, is it is presenting you the most classic version, almost the most iconic version of that origin story you're ever going to get. Anything you see from this point on, or even going backwards, feels like an iteration of this. Even the stuff from before this feels like an iteration of this. This feels like the definitive version. Like, they nailed it so well, particularly the first act of the movie, is so close to perfect and so well thought out and so beautifully told and so confidently told that you don't, it's like, well, yeah, that's the story. That's the version all other things will be judged against. Every new Spider-Man movie that attempts to ever do this origin will be compared to this. And that's why other movies have either not done it or they've tried to do it differently. Because If you tried to do a classic Spider-Man origin now, you will just look bad compared to this every single time, and it's so definitive that you'll never really succeed. So, it kind of makes it hard to review in that sense. I've still got a lot of thoughts about the movie as a whole that we'll get to, but in terms of overall thoughts, look, it's a wonderful, big, bold comic book brought to life. It's campy and exaggerated, but it's sincere and deeply entertaining and very over the top. In the best way. Very dynamic, wonderfully funny, but also wonderfully heartfelt. I mean, with the exception of some small stuff we'll talk about, Toby's performance in the suit being one of my bigger gripes, we'll come to it. It's pretty much a perfect movie. And it's obviously, when we say that, we've clarified on this podcast before, we don't literally mean 100%. Nothing is 100% perfect. But I mean, like, it's in the ballpark of perfect. Like, it's within a decimal place of perfect. Any complaints I have detract so little from this movie. And again, I repeat that this is all based in bias because I fucking love this movie and I love this character. And I love this director. So, there's, you're never gonna get an unbiased perspective from me on this one. It's a classic for a damn good reason. And without it, Marvel doesn't exist as it exists today. This was the movie that told Hollywood, hey, you can make a dumb, bright, fun, confident, sincere superhero movie that's not embarrassed to be a superhero movie, and people will lap that up. He doesn't need to wear a black suit and make a joke about wearing red and blue spandex. He doesn't need to be cool and gritty. He doesn't need to skateboard. Amazing Spider-Man, I'm looking right at fucking you. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, he's a weird, dorky nerd that gets these powers and struggles with them. Yes, please. Just pure and unadulterated, adaptation of that comic. A distillation of what makes that comic great. And partly it's because the director is a huge fan for his entire life, collected the comics, has thousands of them, knows this story intimately. That fucking helps. But still, the studio had to let him make those choices for that to happen. They had to trust him to do that because no one else was doing that up until this point. And then everyone did it. And now we have a Marvel Cinematic Universe, which, again, I repeat, does not exist without Spider-Man 2002. Just doesn't. So that was my big overall rant. Definitely recommend it. Of course I fucking recommend it. I'm recommending all three of these movies. I think the third one is deeply flawed, but you should still probably see it because there's still good stuff hidden amongst it. Jazz dancing and all. We'll talk about it. But yeah, overall thoughts. Wow, that was a long one. Yeah. I don't normally go on that long for the opening thoughts. But yeah, that's my overall view on the film.
Yeah, I think, I think Die Hard is a perfect movie. And two, that's everything this week. Thank you for listening. Dan's done the review. Let's triv it up. No, I agree, obviously, with everything Dan's just said. And I also...
I still have lots of specific things to tackle, like how they handle the love story, Mary Jane, the Goblin stuff. I have some minor questions there. I want to talk about some acting. There's tons to talk about the music. We got plenty. We got lots.
Yeah, no, I'm joking. Yeah, I was just joking, obviously. I think let's get specifics then, because I think one of the other things, not to jump to the end, but one of the other things this movie does expertly, and actually, it's amazing how much hasn't been learned from this movie. I have a feeling I know where this is going. Yes, John. It just sets up a sequel whilst making this movie satisfying so brilliantly. Mm-hmm. Like, it's just perfect. Like, obviously, by the way, we're into full spoiler territory now, and obviously I absolutely recommend the movie as well. So to move us on to full spoilers, because it's just like you say, the direction and what he has chosen to focus the camera on and not. And just the script choices, like Mary Jane touching her lips as Peter walks away, and you have the sensation of, oh, she knows. Like, again, nostalgia. I remember that in the cinema thinking, she's putting it together. Yes. She thinks he's Spider-Man. But also the breadcrumbs they're leading in terms of Harry and wanting revenge on Spider-Man, and the unanswered questions around the Green Goblin's death, the fact that he rejects Mary Jane, which I remember feeling heartbroken about as a kid. It's like, but he loves her. But with great power. Like, it's so
brilliantly done,
effective, but also just leaves... the second movie is exploring all of that. And but equally, if we only got this movie, which, you know, would be insane, the notion that we only ever got this movie would be mad. But I don't feel it would be unsatisfying. I don't particularly feel like I don't remember at the time. I would never, if someone said, name me movies with great cliffhangers, I wouldn't include Spider-Man on that list, even though I've just named 3 points that sort of overhang and arch into the next movie. But you don't.
I'd like you to continue on that thought, but I would like one thing to just interject with it. And I think the reason for that, Chris, is that the things they leave hanging are character beats, not plot beats.
Yeah, for sure.
All of them are character things. And I think the difference between what a movie will do today and a movie will do, this movie did here, is there's a tension between Harry and Spider-Man, but we know Spider-Man is Peter, and there's that tension of, he's like, Pete, you're the only one who's there for me, but I hate Spider-Man. You know, that's amazing. And then we have the Mary Jane thing, which again is like a very sad and dramatic downbeat to end a movie on if there's no sequel, but it's plenty of character stuff to chew on if we do it. None of it is, you know, a guy putting on octopus arms or a basement full of villain origins. Like, again, looking at you, Amazing Spider-Man. You know what I mean? Like, that's plot stuff. That doesn't excite me. I'm not coming back just because you've shown me some vulture wings or octopus arms. It's not enough. That I'm not invested in that. What I am invested in is that you've very cleverly given me a perfect character arc for this movie and then ended your movie with tons more character stuff that I can sink my teeth into for a theoretical sequel. That's how you get me invested in seeing more of this world. But they did it while, as you point out, closing it off. But it's because the focus is character, not plot. I'm sure of that. I'm absolutely convinced that's the difference between a modern day approach to setting up a sequel and the approach that Sam Raimi took here.
Yeah, that's absolutely the case. And like I say, so many modern movies, especially within this genre, could learn from that. Let's talk Toby, because because obviously the adage is that just to give Amazing Spider-Man a compliment, because let me tell you, Dan, if you spend the next 3, it's my choice after 3. If you spend the next 3 episodes shitting on Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movies, I'm fucking picking it. Like we're rolling straight into those
movies, but they happen to have a lot of very large flaws. I still very much enjoy them, but they are very broken.
That feels like the studio and the time they were made more than
there's other issues.
The creatives,
for sure.
But and the chemistry, it turns out if you want to find great chemistry, just pick 2 people that are actually going to end up dating, because the chemistry between Parker and Gwen Stacy in those movies is
it's all 3. That's happened in all 3 couples now. So Toby and Kirsten started dating and were together throughout the production of these 3. Obviously, Stone and Garfield were together following those movies, and Holland and Zendaya are still together. I like the idea that if Tom and Zendaya, if they are married, that he can just go by the name Tom now.
And can I just say, like, a quick, just 20-second side note? I don't know what reaction you want to that, Dad. Do you want me to fake laugh? I can fake laugh if you want. Like,
no, I thought the joke deserved more than nothing.
Because of the problem. No, okay. I'll do a yes and. The problem with that, Dan, is there already is just a Tom, and it is, of course, Tom from MySpace. Everyone's first friend.
That's true.
We can never have anyone just called Tom now. I just want to give my props.
Actually, isn't his surname from MySpace? Because I think most people, when they say Tom, they say Tom from MySpace. I'm pretty sure his gravestone will just say Tom from MySpace.
Oh, that's a dark thought. Let's not think about that. Can I say a quick 20-second side note? Tom and Zendaya, man. Like, I've just done it. There you go. There's your yes and. I've done it.
Perfect.
Like, everyone always says, when you're that famous, you can't try and live your life privately, and you can't, like, they attend public events, right? But still, what you've quite rightly gone. If they're married, like, they do an incredible job of just refusing I imagine everyone interviewing either of those gets a little note that says, by the way, don't fucking ask about their relationship. And they've just proven that you can do it and how to do it.
Yes.
And they handled that whole thing with real grace. So, if they are together, if they are married, I fucking hope they're happy. I hope they're great. So the adage is obviously that Toby is the better Peter Parker. Andrew Garfield is the better Spider-Man, is using sort of the quippier, better person in the suit, and Tom Holland is an amazing combination of both, and that's why he's the balanced. He's the maybe not the master of either, but like good at both. 100%. Yeah. So, do you think that it is because you noticed that and you feel that watching this movie? I think with the added thing now of like. Of also, though, even Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker, like, all joking aside, you really do watch it and go, fucking, that's an old man.
Yeah, we'll talk about the age thing. I've got some complaints about that too, but we'll come back to that because that's its own issue, I think.
As a big Spider-Man fan,
yes,
how noticeable was that he wasn't great in the suit? Because I obviously didn't really notice that until I watched the Garfield movies and until it's pointed out to me. So when you're in the cinema seeing this for the first time, surrounded in your own shit because you've pooped your pants with excitement, how
still
much
shaking.
are you noticing then? Yeah, still shaking. How much are you noticing then that, the suited Spider-Man is not what you would necessarily want it to be?
A tiny bit, but I think at the time I put it down to I didn't think the jokes were very funny, the quips. I was like, the quips aren't good. I didn't really put it on Toby. And it's not 100% Toby. I think there's a little from column A, a little from column B here, but I think young Dan watching it just thought, the jokes didn't really work. Because obviously, I've read the comics where Spidey is very quippy and very witty, and like, especially once I got to like reading the Ultimate Spider-Man comics, where Brian Michael Bendis wrote a really quippy version of the webhead. So I was very aware that was a requirement. And the jokes, just even as a kid, when he's like, "You're out, Gobby, out of your mind," or when he says to J. Jonah Jameson, "Shut up, kiddo, the grown-ups are talking," or whatever he says. And I'm just like, I never found that funny. But as an adult, what I'm realizing is that it fundamentally, as a performance, fails to understand what Spider-Man is. When Peter puts on the costume, he becomes, because he's hidden, because he's no longer gets to be Peter Parker, it's escapism for him. And while he is still doing great power, great responsibility, he becomes way more confident and almost cocky. And that's why he quips. He's still he's a chattermouth anyway. He's sort of got that Deadpool thing, that ADHD thing that I also suffer from, which is just never really being able to shut up. So like it's almost like comes from nervousness, but it presents as cockiness. It presents as arrogance, and it's a big part of the presentation of Spider-Man. But Toby seems to have sort of tried to keep the Peter voice. And I don't literally mean voice here. I mean the essence of the awkward Peter performance in those moments too, and it just does not function whatsoever. It's awful, actually. And look, don't get me wrong, the quips are bad. They're badly written. They're not funny. It's the one thing they kind of got wrong on a script level in terms of like the writing, because the writing in this movie is super sharp otherwise, but they just didn't get that nailed at all. And then you've got Toby being just awkward in delivering them. And I think that was a choice. I think Toby decided, well, he's awkward as Peter Parker. He's not going to be any cooler now he's Spider-Man. But I like my ideal interpretation of Spider-Man is that the suit gives him confidence. The problem you have with the Garfield versions is the opposite, where he's confident and cocky and cool, doing all the quips and being funny and zipping around, and like when the guy pulls out a knife and he pretends it's his one weakness and falls to his knees, like that's very funny. The problem with that though is he's like that when he's Peter Parker too. He's too cool. He's like skateboarding around, and he's obviously just absurdly handsome because it's Andrew Garfield. Like, and I'm not saying you should hire a less handsome person. And obviously, Tobey Maguire is also very handsome. But Tobey Maguire is quite happy to pull a goofy grin and wear weird glasses and have his hair all slicked in a bizarre way. You know what I mean? Like, Tobey Maguire is a handsome man, but he happily goofied himself up for this movie to be Peter Parker. And he walks weird and he's sort of hunched shoulders. Like, he understands what he's doing perfectly and he's absolutely nailing it. But the reason you know that is because there's one moment where he forgets to do it, and it's my favourite. That when he's talking to MJ in the back garden and Flash turns up, you notice he's less hunched and he sort of like shuffles his shoulders around and he like moves in a more natural way than he has at any other point in the movie or any other point even going forward in the movie. And it's like the one moment he either made a choice or forgot. And he might have made a choice because there is a line about like, you know, I hunch, don't. So maybe that's what that is. But Garfield is the exact opposite problem. So yeah, in this movie, everything from the movement to the voice when he's in that costume and he is Spider-Man, it does not function for me in terms of performance. It's bad. Again, not helped by bad jokes, but my God, it's doesn't work for me at all. Such a shame. Such a shame. So close. So close.
Yeah,
do you not feel that? Did you? I mean, it doesn't sound like you felt it originally. How do you feel about it now? With that, no, you went into the movie knowing that's the sort of adage, that's the thing people say about these movies. Were you looking out for it? Did you feel it?
Oh yeah, you notice it. Yeah, like you said, it doesn't necessarily take away from the movie, but you definitely notice it. But you kind of notice it in some ways, and again, I don't mean this as a criticism of the movie. I think it's commendable, but you sort of notice when you watch it like this how little Spider-Man is in the movie in some regards. You know, like I say, we get the first 55 minutes in, we wait to get the first Green Goblin Spider-Man fight, and you know, I don't feel shortchanged in terms of the amount of Spider-Man, but I think because he's not necessarily going to be, you know, once Green Goblin is chasing after Aunt May and Mary Jane, he's not going to be quippy. So actually, the real montage where it's most effective, where it's most an issue, is just that, is a montage. And maybe you could argue the stuff in the cage as well before he, you know, before he somehow makes the suit, you know, which if we're nitpicking probably needs explaining more.
Well, I think the other thing there is like, there is one other beat, which is when he's first fighting the Goblin before the Goblin is like going after his family, because he has two altercations with the Goblin before the Goblin goes after MJ and Aunt May. We have him at the Macy's Day, the Thanksgiving parade, and we have him at the Bugle, the Flatiron Building that's been redressed as the Bugle. You know, there are two interactions there where he would have been absolutely perfectly able to, you know, throw a few quips out or whatever. And even the moment when because they do try, like I said, that's when he like shuts up Jonah Jameson with the web and is like, you know, shut up, kiddo, the parents are talking. And then we get when he meets him in the burning building, you know, you're out, Gubby, out of your mind, you know, that whole nonsense. So they did try, bless them. Oh dear. Yeah, it's a shame. It's a real shame. But yeah, there were moments they could have done it. I accept that towards the end of the film, there's no quippy Spider-Man, and that's fine. That's a choice too. Like, it's a much more dramatic situation. Although in the comics, one of the traits of Peter is no matter how serious the situation is, he's still making dumb comments because it's kind of like a nervous reaction, you know, to the situation. Like, it's Spectacular Spider-Man. He, like, the Green Goblin crashes into like a party and is like threatening to kill a bunch of people, and then Spider-Man sticks his head through the big hole that the Green Goblin has made and said, "Can I use this hole or do I need to make one of my own?" And it's like, yes, perfect. Like, that is exactly right. And it doesn't matter how serious the situation is. You know, he is capable of like, he is capable of being funny because he's awkward and doesn't know what else to do with his motor mouth in those moments. There's always great moments when he's fighting alongside the Avengers or any other superhero where they're like, "Do you ever shut up? Like, does this stop?" And he's like, "No, I'm always like this." So it's a big part of the character that this movie gets wrong, sadly. We get a better version of it with Garfield, and then we get a sort of middle, sort of like passable version of it with Holland. They don't really do the quippiness with Holland too much, but when it is there,
I don't know. Like if you think about Civil War, like, and how he is in those fight scenes.
Yeah,
I think we do. I think,
but since then, in his own actual movies, like I can't think of a huge amount of quippiness in like Homecoming or Far From Home. I don't think. No Way Home. No, I can't think of it.
No, there's probably more. They definitely do it better than this movie. But yes, it's probably not as big a thing as it is in
and I think that's almost actually what would have been better is like not trying. Like I think if your best effort is you're out of your mind, just take that out of the script. You can just not have a quip. Like you could literally take it out. Like he doesn't need to speak. He can say nothing. That's okay. That's a choice too.
Yeah, absolutely. What did you think to the romance then? What did you think to?
I'm going to flip that on you.
Mary Jane?
I'm going to flip that on you because I spoke a lot about that, and you're always that you've got a better sense of like when a romance works. Did you believe it? Did you believe her shift at the end? Did you like the arc of it? How did it land for you?
I think the shift at the end is the interesting point, isn't it? I think Peter's speech, Maguire's performance. In the hospital when Peter's giving the speech about what he said to Spider-Man. Actually, Kirsten Dunst's reaction as well to that speech is wonderful. Like, and I like you say, such sincerity. Like you give that dialogue to lesser performers, and that scene feels over the top.
Yeah.
But somehow a really, really unsubtle dialogue, and I'm not necessarily criticising the dialogue there. I think, as you said, one of the film's greatest strength is that it's not afraid to be bold.
Do you think that's the tone set by Sam Raimi?
Yeah, I think so.
Like
well, and obviously the script, the color, everything else. Like,
yeah, but do you think like we've created a world where like sincere dialogue or like sort of cheesy dialogue is like way more acceptable, and you just sort of you buy it because the rest of the movie tonally is like that too? Is that the trick?
I think you buy it. I think you buy it more because of the performances. I think Maguire and Dunst are particularly excellent.
They are great in that scene. Yeah.
I think it's particularly powerful, and Maguire has created a character that you can believe would think like that. And I suppose it is backed up in the rest of the script. Aunt May's speech about him grabbing her hand and saying, "Is that an angel?" Like,
yes.
You believe that kid grows up to be that man. So that's such an impactful speech. The turn at the end is the interesting one because I don't know what, but I think it would have been nice to see something within the scene where she's captured. I think we as an audience need to see the moment that she is clearly thinking about Peter. And I think, whether that's a line of dialogue Peter says that Spider-Man sort of emulates and we see Kirsten Dunst clearly thinking about something, or whether it happens after she touches down on the ship sort of that they've sent to save them. I think it plays out brilliantly. I think it all works, but just to kind of make it complete and make the turn complete, I think it would have been nice to have a moment where we as an audience aren't just told that, when Mary Jane thought she was going to die, all she could think about was Peter Parker. I think it would have been nice to find a way to have that represented. And, I think that is definitely possible, Peter gives her something in an earlier scene. Peter gives her a Thanksgiving present, and it's a necklace, and she's holding the necklace. Whatever. That sounds cheesy, but a lot of this movie sounds cheesy. But in execution, it doesn't feel it. I think I would have liked to have seen the moment, but that's the only thing. Otherwise, I think their chemistry is great throughout. I think, the scene where she's sort of saying to him, does it not matter? Do you definitely, the whole, do you want to come to dinner with us scene, where she's sort of frustrated because it's clear that he's not saying something that he wants to say. I think the scene, obviously, in the backyard is the scene I would have remembered, actually. I don't know if I'd have, as well as I'd feel I knew this movie, I don't know if you'd have said to me, but if you'd have said to me before this movie, name some Peter and MJ scenes, I'd have named the backyard scene after her dad yells at her. I'd have named the kiss, obviously. I'd have named the rescue. I don't think I would have named the hospital scene. But I think added up, all of those scenes work well. The whole Harry of it all worked better than I would have remembered it, because I think a lot of my sort of the three of them memories are from the later films. Actually, I think it's done well in this film. So I think it all works really nicely. I think their chemistry is brilliant. I think the acting in certain moments, like the hospital scene, is superb, given that the dialogue could read as a bit over the top, but it's kind of over the top dialogue that's undersold in the performance in a really powerful way. But I would have liked to have seen something representing the switch to in Mary Jane's mind, as opposed to being told about it at the end. What's your view?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I think that's pretty much echoes my thoughts. My I guess addition to that, and I'd be interested to see if you agree with this, is I really like that her love story with Peter is informed by both of their character arcs. Because I would say, and look, I'll be honest, this is one of the movies that heavily underserves MJ, and I think this might be a running theme. She is often the afterthought of these movies, but she does have an arc in this movie, which is about doing things for herself, not other people. In the beginning of the movie, she's sort of being the party girl almost for Flash. She's being the girlfriend Harry wants his dad to meet. She's not being herself. And one of the things that I noted from her speech at the end is that one of the reasons for her shift to realizing that the only person, it is done in dialogue, I agree with you, it would have been nicer to have some sort of representation for that. I 100% agree with that point. But one thing that's great about her sort of speech at the end is when she talks about how he makes her feel like she can be herself and that that's enough. And I think that really nicely ties into what we've been witnessing as her character arc. Peter believed in her from day one to go and pursue what she wanted to go and pursue, and everyone else wanted her to be something she wasn't for them, including her dad. And I think that isn't the most in-depth arc, and she's not explored as much as maybe she should be, but it is there, and it does tie nicely into her shifting love life and her reasons for shifting to Peter. I really like the reason she comes around to Peter at the end of the movie. And you think as well, because there are lots of little hints across the movie's runtime that, she subconsciously, I think she's always felt this way about him. She just didn't understand it. She always felt warm towards him. She always liked to talk to him. There are moments earlier in the movie when people being mean to him that she's sort of looking at, not longingly, like in love, but she has some sort of feeling towards him she can't put her finger on. And it is that when she interacts with him, she feels, better about herself, and that he's, nice to her in the way that other people aren't, and he's supportive of her in ways that other people aren't. So I like that the movie does that throughout, and the brilliant juxtaposition of Peter being madly in love with her from minute one, but not being confident enough to say it. And then by the time he's sort of becoming Spider-Man and getting more confidence and talking to her, she's with Harry, and there's not much he can do about that either. And he's such I love how sort of gee whiz 60s noble he is. He's like, she's Harry's girl, I can't do anything about that. He might as well be like, he's a real wallflower. You know what I mean? He's so out of time, this version of Peter, and I kind of love that for him. It just makes so much sense to me because he was brought up by his aunt and uncle who are almost a generation older than his parents would be in this adaptation, which is usually how they're portrayed. They're much older than their siblings that led to him being with them. But so he's almost got older sensibilities, and he's like, she's Harry's girl, I can't say anything. And then like the minute that Peter is presented with the choice, finally she's realized the absolute tragedy of he's just learnt the absolute hardest way that the ones he loves are going to be the targets, and he has to make that really horrible choice. And it's when you combine those two stories, when they collide, the guy who always loved this girl finally having the opportunity to say it and act on it, and the girl finally coming to a point where she sees him. To quote Community, she sees his value now. Although that's a quote from another movie, I think that Community did. But anyway, she, when that all happens, it's at the exact wrong moment. It's this horrible tragedy, and it's just, I think there is something so brilliant about unrequited love, and then the moment the love will be requited, he can't say yes. It's just heartbreaking and powerful. And because the movie spends the whole movie convincing me how much he truly loves her, and then they do an excellent job convincing me that she's loved him all along, she's only just putting it together now. To have them not be able to be together it's art, man. That's fucking incredible. That is masterful storytelling, and it's incredible character work. And it goes alongside both of their arcs as people learning, in Peter's case, to have more responsibility and make choices that are for the benefit of those around him, being self-sacrificing, which is always Peter's way, and MJ learning that she can do things for herself and be supported by someone at the same time, and she can be herself, and that's okay. And it's just crazy to watch that all come together like that. It's amazing. It's genuinely amazing. People should study these scripts. Because while MJ's arc is very thin, it just comes together in such a brilliant way, and you really feel it in that graveyard scene. It's so good that a certain transphobic writer stole it almost word for word at the end of one of her most famous books. Shots fired.
Let's yeah, not for the first time.
Not for the last time, baby. I'm coming for you, Joanne.
I agree with what you just said. Let's talk. Now, I know you touched upon this earlier, Dan. But let's talk about Mr. William Dafoe, shall we?
Oh, please.
Man.
Tell me some things about William Dafoe, Chris.
That performance.
Yeah.
It's so layered. Because I think if you haven't watched this movie in a long time,
yep, you
would, as I would have done, you would think that performance was, him as Mr. Osborn, and then what's his name? Because obviously it's Harry and Norman. So him as Norman Osborn, and then him as the Green Goblin. But then, you realise that there's Norman Osborn when he is being genuinely nice, but then there's also that explosion, for example, at the apartment on Thanksgiving. I don't think that's just the Green Goblin. You know what I mean? That isn't the Green Goblin. That isn't all the Green Goblin. That's part of it. And like you say, I think, like you hinted at earlier, one of the issues with Norman's arc is that you could choose to put as much to it as you could choose to put as much of it to the procedure and the mind altering effects of the experiment as you wanted. But I think in that performance, actually, one of the layers to it is, in some respects, Green Goblin is bringing to the surface a side of Norman Osborn that is there and has always been there. And, that's why there's tension with him and Harry at the beginning before he's even done the experiment. And Harry's, doesn't necessarily want to be seen getting out the car and all of that sort of stuff. And I think, and also the fact that he, knows the dangers of the experiment are pretty well spelt out by the team, but his ego won't stop him from getting in that chamber and doing the experiment anyway. And I think in different scenes, the levels of whether it's Green Goblin, whether it's sort of Norman, whether it's the more negative side of Norman's personality coming through, whether it's the negative sides coming through but they get enhanced by the Green Goblin and impacted by that, let alone the cinematography of the mirror sequences, or the sequences where it feels like there's two actors and two characters in the room, and actually it's just William Dafoe acting with himself, but good. Fucking expertly. Like the mirror scene and then the scene where he's talking to the mask on the chair are just fucking it's masterful acting. And I think the nuance that he gives a role that, again, on paper, could be executed in a cartoonish way. And again, you the fact that we are saying about so many elements of this movie, it could be cartoony, it could be over the top, but it's not. Suggest that Sam Ramana I don't know.
I think Chris just had a processing error, and he got into a recursive loop for a second there. I think that was as close to a crash I've ever heard from Chris.
It's Ramney, right? And you've been saying Rami. Now I'm overthinking it. Raimi. That's it. That's what. Yeah, right. Yeah. I think that's what I've been saying, but I don't know. You probably point to 50 podcasts where I've said it differently. But
but if you have, it's been at my guidance, because you've been hearing me say it and assumed. Naturally, because historically, for those who don't know, in this podcast, usually when it comes to pronouncing names, I'm often closer than Chris, and Chris has had a reputation for mispronouncing certain names in the past. But I'm obviously not free from this. No one is perfect, but obviously Chris has protected me for years by being wrong way more frequently. I have absolutely been saying that name wrong for my entire life, and I am certain that you will have, if I say Sam Rami, as I've been pronouncing it instead of Raimi, I'm convinced you'd have said Rami in the immediate aftermath. Yeah. So if we've ever talked about this in the past, I've definitely led you off the edge of that cliff. That's all on me, 100%.
Fair. Well, when there are so many elements where we are set, because I just want to make, I agree. I'm just making sure I don't lose the point. Yeah, of course. When there are so many elements that we are saying that could be executed in an over-the-top, cartoonish way, but it's been pulled back to just the right level. It is obviously, in the examples we've talked about, Maguire's acting and Defoe's acting as well. But there are so many elements of this movie that applies to, that you just have to assume it came from the top and was a tone set by the direction and from Sam, which is how I'm going to refer to him to avoid difficulties. I know how to pronounce You're on first name basis with him. But whilst I've looped back round to that point, William Dafoe's performance is absolutely incredible, and the Green Goblin's arc and the power in the "Don't Tell Harry." And whilst is the example where the line isn't quite right of like the cartoonish, but sticking to it and working. Is that example the thud as he dies? Or is actually the thud really impactful? I love it. Because it's so brutal.
It's so brutal, but I love... my favourite part about that is the cut-in to the... Oh. And then... it's that brief cut to Osborn realising what's happened. Yeah. A heartbeat away from death and just go... Oh, fuck. Yeah, I screwed that up. It's so perfect. That scene is glorious.
I don't know if that is over the line that I've just praised being walked so beautifully.
I think that is dancing on the line while giving you the finger. That's what I think that is.
So yeah, I mean, Defoe's it's just incredible. But also the writing and execution of the character is also incredible. What's your view?
Yeah, no, 100% agree. And I think I'm realizing more and more that it's just again, it's that lack of winking that movie ever does. The movie never points at anything cynically and says, so it has this really nice, honest, gee whiz view of its filmmaking, where it takes it all very seriously. And at no point is the movie making fun of itself or making jokes about how goofy anything is. So that's one of the ways it plays into sincerity. And yeah, obviously all of this brilliant filmmaking from Sam Raimi is then backed up by these incredible, like, career-defining performances. And look, Willem Dafoe is one of the greatest actors of his generation. I'm not saying he doesn't have this incredible body of work, but this is just, not only is this some of the best acting I've ever seen, but it's like iconic. It's so memorable, and he fully understands what to do in each and every scene to try and sell us on some really complicated ideas. I mean, we should talk a little bit about Peter and Norman's arc in a second, because this will be a springboard for that, because I do have a mild criticism of the movie around the Peter and Norman of it, and it's actually something they fix in the next movie, but we'll come back to that in a second. I want to finish praising Dafoe. The effortless way in which he switches between personas and bleeds them together in certain moments, so you know the Goblin is influencing it, but he's still sort of Norman, to the way at the end you're even questioning, is that Norman, or is that the Green Goblin pretending to have become Norman again to get out of the situation? Like when he's going, "Oh, Peter, sweet Peter, you're like a father to me, I was like a father to you, all that stuff." Is that actually Norman? Has the Green Goblin lost and let go? Or is he just pretending to try and trick Peter? And like, you're never sure.
I think it's the Green Goblin.
I think so too.
I think it's
that's my opinion of it also. But I would absolutely not begrudge anyone feeling differently. If someone said, "Yeah, the real Norman comes through for a second there," I'd be like, "Yeah, absolutely," because the evidence to the contrary would be that they don't tell Harry stuff. That would be a line that you'd think that's probably the real him nestled in. But again,
I think that in that moment it's the real him. Yeah.
Sure. But I think what's so good about it is I feel I can very clearly define and delineate between the two because of how good his performance is. So yes, the movie is working on all the levels we've already talked about to sell you what otherwise might be goofy moments. But my God, is Willem Dafoe just the man. Just the man. It's just, and it's effortless for him. He just understands exactly what he's doing in all moments. And he insisted, we'll talk about this a little bit more, but he insisted being in the costume the entire time. He wanted to do like all the stunts they would let him, because he believed that the character would also come through the physicality, the way he moved on the glider. So he was insistent. And it really shows, in my opinion, that he had thought about this character a great deal. He didn't do this going, "Oh yeah, it's like a crazy guy, I'll be all manic." Like there are so many very careful, deliberate choices that feel effortless, but probably took a great deal of, careful thought and design. And look, the movie's stacked with just great performances. I mean, J.K. Simmons is so good at J. Jonah Jameson, they never bothered recasting. Like, when they brought the character back, they were like, "Well, it's J.K. Simmons." But it's a different universe. It's J.K. Simmons. He's J. Jonah Jameson. No one else should be. Rosemary Harris.
But hold on. In this universe, we're going to literally have people from other universes that look different. So, in terms of variations, the implication is different universes, different faces. Doesn't matter. J.K. Simmons. It's fine.
Yeah, it's still J.K. Still J.K. There's no one else. We can't beat it. Why would we try? It's amazing how good he is. That's the thing. Even... rest in peace to his career. But, even James Franco, as much as we've put him in a bin, is great as Harry. He is. Like, it's, terrible people, sadly, can make good art. Shocker, But, he's great in this movie. He's very, very well balanced as Harry. I'm never a big fan of jock Harry, which some interpretations have done. I like Harry being slightly more self-aware than Peter, but still ultimately a bit of a nerd. Not quite as cool as the jocks, your flashes and stuff. I've seen interpretations where Harry's also reasonably popular and he's trying to help Peter be more popular. That's never my favorite interpretation of Harry, if I'm being honest. I like this middle ground myself, where he's been, a bit broken by his dad. That sounds mean. I like him to be broken. I like him to have daddy issues. But it makes for a more compelling character for me, and I prefer this take on Harry. And I think, again, James Franco truly understands that. And we've already praised her, but I'll just, while we're on the acting, obviously Kirsten Dunst is an amazing Mary Jane Watson. They don't give her as much to work with as the other characters, but what she is able to communicate in this movie with glances, especially in that brilliant middle portion of the movie where she's sort of falling in love with not Peter but Spider-Man, and the weird tragic irony of that. That's played really good as well. Really good. Played really well. Sorry. I should have been kicked down a well as I said that, to quote Bo Burnham. She's great in this movie.
I think that sentence, and obviously the whole cast is brilliant, but that sentence of isn't given much to do but does an incredible amount with not much, and glances and looks also obviously applies to Rosemary Harris as Aunt May as well.
So good.
Exactly the same thing.
Good.
And that speech in the hospital bed is brilliant. And also, Cliff Robertson. There's a reason that no one's... There's a big part of the reason that no one has... that every other movie has struggled to find a way. Like, the extreme measures in which they had to go to for Tom Holland's Spider-Man to make it a different take, to avoid the dancing around that they had to do with Martin Sheen, an incredible actor in Amazing Spider-Man, is partly because of, again, like we were saying earlier, how well defined Cliff Robertson made Uncle Ben's line. It's so good, and he's amazing in it. I wanna talk about that and sort of the revenge element and the violence, because the thing about, as we said earlier, the thing about the ratings controversy is like we said, I do think they have a point, and I think one very clever decision that the script makes to help it is that neither of the big deaths, you can make an argument that neither of the big deaths are literally Peter's fault.
No.
Self-inflicted. The robber, the robber pulls the gun on him and then in walking backwards trips over the pipe and falls to their death. The Green Goblin is trying to kill Peter, forgetting he has the senses of a spider, and impales himself on his own device. Very symbolic.
It's interesting, isn't it? Forgetting or just doesn't know. I wondered about that. Does he forget in that moment? Or does he just not know that's a power Peter has? He's not had a lot of time to study it.
I think he's not. I think he's not thinking it through. I don't think it's either. Do you know what I mean? He's just trying to win the...
just desperation.
So I think that's a very clever decision in terms of the morality of the character, and I remember noticing that at the time, and I remember feeling relieved that even though there were deaths, I could sit there and make an argument for why they weren't Peter's fault. That doesn't take away from the shock and the violence of it, though. In particular, obviously, the Green Goblin's death. Is this movie appropriate for a 10-year-old? Is my question to you, Dan.
I'm going to go ahead and say yes. I think that the movie's violence is carefully used in character moments and is never gratuitous for the sake of it. We use it in this movie to show our character and where he's at. When he's at his lowest, arguably, following Uncle Ben's death, he makes rash decisions. The movie does not praise him for it. The movie does not make him right. It's a bit, well, it's not quite like, but do you remember we talked a bit about the sort of quote unquote incest complaint about Back to the Future, and we kind of said, well, the movie isn't saying it's good. the movie is very much against those two kissing. Like when they do, Marty's, Lorraine's immediate response is, that felt wrong and weird, and the movie's like, yes, that's bad. I feel a little bit the same here. I don't think we should shy away from showing kids things, as long as that we're going to treat them carefully and with a certain amount of I get caution, but that's the same as carefully, with a certain amount of like respect for not glorifying them, like being very careful around not making it look fun or cool. There's nothing fun or cool about any of the violence in this movie. It's either Peter doing it and regretting it, or being involved in it and regretting it and being sad about it, or it's the villains doing it and we're leaning on the horror to really emphasize the badness of the villain, the evil of the villain. And I think because of that, they get away with it. If the movie was like opened with like Peter like, you know, being horribly violent to many people and never being regretful or any of that, then yeah, we've got a problem. It's gratuitous in that way. But the movie never celebrates its violence, never once. If anything, it's always done in a way that shows you violence is awful and not the way to go. The bomb exploding in Peter's face is like, you would argue, needlessly gory, and I wouldn't disagree with you. But for my money, it shows us the depths of the Green Goblin's violence and his evil, that he goes that far. I mean, he throws that bomb in Peter's face, you know. And then I think, and I will have to come back to this point, I think maybe this is a put a pin in it for the next movie. The next movie takes advantage of this movie's choices to... Oh, no, it's not the next one. It's the third one. Sorry, I'm thinking of the third movie. The third movie takes advantage of this movie's choices to show us Peter having fallen. And glorifying the violence, and that will be very interesting to see. So yeah, we'll come back to that point. But I think the movie gets away with it. That's my feeling, and I feel like it is appropriate for a 10-year-old. I think absolutely fine, especially in a modern context. I mean, at the time, I could see somebody going like, maybe that's too much like blood. You know, when he gets his arm cut or whatever, or maybe that's too dark an idea. You know, him getting impaled on the glider, but like realistically, we don't see a lot. You don't see a lot of blood. You're not seeing any of the real gore. Like, it's, you know, most of it's like implied, and that also helps. As ridiculous as that sounds. So yeah, I don't know, man. I feel like they got away with it. Well, do you feel differently with that thought, man? But by the way, I'm not saying I disagree with the BBFC's criticism. I just think that, like, in all, I think they get away with it.
It's difficult because, yes, I agree with everything you said, and even before you started speaking, my view was exactly what you talked about. They make it clear it's wrong. They're not glorifying it. The impaling of Green Goblin, I think, is the one moment potentially you could argue could stick, for example, in a negative way in a young child's mind. I do think it's interesting that that's also the moment I feel most dances the line in terms of cartoony, and you do have to wonder if maybe that's, you know, part of it. It's like it's like the whole thing in the pilot of Lost, where you don't actually see blood very deliberately until a specific moment, and it's sort of a bit like, is the edge slightly taken off by the sort of oof and the thud and even the like, you know, before the impaling. Yeah, that's the one moment where I wonder if there is a graphic nature to that as an idea. But in general, I don't think it is. But it's really difficult, isn't it? Because it's, we're coming from it from the point of view of we saw the film, slightly older, and seeing it now. And do I feel that way? No. Now, if someone's had a 7-year-old child and they said to me, oh, they love Tom Holland and they want to check out the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies. Do you think they'll be all right watching it? I've never seen it. I would tell them about that ending moment. I don't know if I would necessarily even mention anything else, but certainly that Green Goblin death I would point to, I think. So, yeah, I could understand someone then going, well, in that case, no. But I could equally understand someone going, oh, okay, I've watched that clip, and yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, I guess always with these things as well, I always say, like, the sensitivity, is if the child is, like, a big factor. I think parents, sometimes they want, like, a blanket yes or no answer for, is this appropriate for my child? But, like, some children are much more comfortable early on fully understanding movies are movies and never feeling that they represent reality, and have a good separation of that at a really early age, and they can probably see more adult content and understand the situation. I mean, obviously I'm going to be an advocate of this. I was a kid who was exposed to a lot of things I shouldn't have been by traditional ideals, but thankfully, in my case, not traumatized by any of it, because I was one of those kids that wasn't sensitive to that stuff. if you've got a child who gets upset watching a Marvel movie if the hero gets punched, don't show them this one. You know what I mean? Like if you've got a child that is more sensitive and jumpy to things like that, then be careful what you show them.
It's also what you're sensitive to, isn't it? Like I've never in terms of, I've always been, personally speaking, I've always been able to, even as a young kid, separate, make myself aware I'm watching a movie. If something, if it's a horror movie and it seems frightening or whatever, I've always had that separation. But sometimes for me, it will be ideas. We've had the discussion before, but there is an idea in an episode of Doctor Who which is in no way violent, and there is on the surface nothing that would stop you showing it to a child. But I personally think the idea is too frightening and inappropriate for a young child, but that's not about violence or graphic scenes at all. That's just about a concept, So it depends. You might feel that violence isn't a thing. It's like I'm very I'm very loose on, and by the people around me, I'm having to become less loose on language. Because, for example, for me, I just sort of think kids are going to be exposed to swearing and stuff at school eventually. Like, do you know what I mean?
I heard more swearing from my PE teacher than I ever heard off TV.
Yeah. And it's just kind of like, and so, but that's a me thing. Do you know what I mean? And there will be people that are like, would think that's horrendous and be like, no, you can't swear in front of a child. Like, you have to set a good example. And I get that. And maybe maybe we'll feel differently in time. But yeah, it's funny. Like you say, very much each to their own. What are some of your other? Because I feel like I've led the sort of Defoe, the romance, the violence, the ratings. What are some of your topic points that you want to discuss?
Yeah, well, I want to get back to the Goblin because I made a mental note to come back to this, because when we were talking about him, I said we'll praise the performance and then we'll loop round to the actual character arc, because I think as a criticism of the movie, and there aren't many, as one of the smaller criticisms, I don't think they succeeded in one. Okay. So part of this is knowledge of what they were trying to go for, and part of this is just the movie as it stands. They wanted to create a sort of more father-son dynamic between Norman Osborn and Peter Parker. And the movie gets distracted and doesn't really do that, because it's spending its time doing everything else brilliantly. And, like, if you're going to sell me on the MJ Peter relationship and break my heart at the end with that choice, and like you're going to set up the Green Goblin as a very complex character in other means, I love all that. And his weird obsession with Spider-Man, you sort of buy his decision to sort of start going after his loved ones to prove a point, is the sort of thought of a madman that makes a lot of sense for a good villain, and he's a compelling villain in all of those ways. But I think they wanted to tap into the drama of a mentor figure turning into a villain. And, a father figure for a person who literally doesn't have their father. Just, struggling with that. The problem is they just don't dedicate enough of the movie to it. Norman Osborn is just so cartoonishly villainous in most of the scenes we see him in. You really don't ever get a warm, cuddly feeling between him and Peter to sell us on that. So when we get to the end of the movie, and he, whether lying or not as the Goblin, says, I was like a father to you, Peter's response feels sort of hollow, because what he says is, I had a father, his name was Ben Parker, which is great, and a great moment for Toby's character. But for this relationship dynamic, the actual response is, wait, what? You think we had a father-son dynamic? I see you like twice a year. Like, I barely know you. I think we've had 3 interactions. They've been 2 sentences each time. What are you talking about? Like, if you wanted to sell me on that, they should have been together more. Otherwise, don't put it in the fucking movie. Like, don't try and like put it in as a tiny afterthought. And I know, like, you could argue that it's like, it's a Green Goblin last-ditch effort, but I know from the trivia and my research on the movie that the reason they chose to narrow the villains, because I think the draft immediately preceding the just Green Goblin villain draft, there was a draft of the movie that had another villain alongside the Green Goblin, which I think you should change it to you don't want your movie to be overstuffed anyway, but their thinking was they wanted to focus on that sort of potential mentor-mentee, father-son dynamic. And the irony of that is that doesn't end up in the final movie at all, in my opinion. And it makes those last lines feel hollower than they should. And you end up just reading it as, oh, it's just desperate effort from the Goblin, which Peter just throws back in his face. It doesn't have there's no impact to it. It's a fun line, but it doesn't, it has more impact for Peter's character arc than it does for their relationship one to the other. So it's sort of not, it should be doing two things, and it's really only doing one. And so I don't think that really worked, in my opinion. But yeah, that's
I agree. No, I very much agree, and I think there's a fix. Like, I like the line where in the apartment at Thanksgiving. No, I don't think. I think this might be before Thanksgiving.
It's like a few weeks before when he's saying to Peter about, like, is it the scene where he's like, Harry's got a new girl he won't tell me about. Do you know anything about this mystery woman? Is it that scene?
Yeah. And I like the line where Norman says about Peter's values because he won't take a job from him.
You want to do it on your own steam. He says, you want to do it on your own steam. I respect that. That's the line.
Yeah, and I really like that line, and I like, how Harry's reaction to that, and I think that works. Yeah. But if you really did want to do the closer relationship between Peter and Norman, and then I think when they're in New York, he has accepted the job. He is working with Norman. It's not necessarily on screen. Maybe that line that gets Harry's back up could be a line about Peter's science knowledge and how he is at Oscorp. Maybe diehard fans would be a bit annoyed that we weren't seeing Oscorp then, if that was the case. But if you really, I'm talking specifically about if you really did want to do that. The notion that they're working together off screen and have built a relationship, and you could even, then maybe you don't even need to do Thanksgiving. That could take place at work. Yeah. Like, you keep disappearing and all of that sort of stuff.
It might even be simpler. Because you know how Peter's like lost his job with Dr. Connors is one of the references in this. But like you could have a thing where Peter's talking about he's writing a paper to help him get a job or get into a program or something, a scientific paper. And the reason Norman's even around at the apartment is not to see Harry, but he's read Peter's paper and is giving him feedback on it, like notes, like I read your paper, Peter paper. It's just it's great work. You with your mind, you should be working here. Let me make some calls. Oh no, sir, I'd rather get the job on my own. And you still have the same beat, but their relationship is a lot more like they're sharing that passion for science. It's only one moment, but that alone would probably have sold me on it a lot better than what we got. But it's not the end of the world. But truthfully, it's really not. It's just it's a very minor thing, because thankfully the moment at the end, that exchange still has a function in Peter's arc, which is him sort of saying, I had a father who was Ben Parker, which is this great callback to the last words he said to Uncle Ben, which is, "You're not my dad." So like, I it works anyway, but as a small like thing I might have personally preferred more, would have been better. But you're absolutely right, that would have been the solution for sure. Take advantage of that scene. Yeah,
I think so. Because I agree completely. Like, I love that I had a father, his name was Ben. It's a great line.
Yes.
But it doesn't, you just, like you say, the actual reaction to that stuff is just to sort of laugh, because it's not true. They don't have a close relationship.
Peter's actual reaction should be, "Are you feeling okay? Are you hallucinating? Are you hallucinating a relationship we don't have? Like, what are you talking about?"
No. He should just full blown. He should just full blown do an impression of Arnold from Different Strokes. His reaction to that should literally be, "What you talking about, Willis?" Like, he should literally.
I wouldn't give Maguire a comedy line in this movie. But But I agree. All right, let's talk about some smaller things that are just tiny. Okay, on the point of the ages, we should talk about the ages. Look, it's fucking insane, and I tell you what, won't help, right? So let's just say, Chris, you've made a choice to hire actual adults to play teenagers, right? Just full on, like 25, 27, 30-year-olds playing teenagers. I tell you what you shouldn't do. Hire someone that age to play their teacher chaperoning them on the field trip. Because all that does is make it worse. When that guy comes over and talks to them, I'm like, okay, so this is either a teacher's convention or that student is pretending to be a teacher. Because that guy comes over and is clearly not much older than the people he's telling off that are supposed to be his students. Get a guy, I'm not being funny, cast a guy. And look, the guy that plays that role, by the way, he's very good. He's quite charming. He only gets a couple of lines. I like him a lot. It's a shame. But the reality is, if you're casting so much older for the other kids, I want a guy with grey hair. I want grumpy old professor. Let's sell me that these are children by going up on the age of the teacher. That would help. Please. Unless, do you have anything to add on that, Chris? That bothered me a lot. I'll move on otherwise.
No. I think that's fair. Although I will say, I think because we were younger, I will say I did not feel the age thing until later years, and especially with the comparison of Garfield and Tom Holland. The fact that we weren't getting high school Peter and the fact that Maguire is older did not bother me at the time at all. I don't know if I even would have noticed it, to be fair.
No, that's fair. And I will say as well, there is also an element of this isn't this movie's unique problem. There were a lot of movies in this era doing this same thing. So those kids, for a movie, they look high school age because in a movie they are. And I will say, this movie very quickly moves out of high school, gets them through college. The movie jumps through time quite a bit. There are time jumps in this movie, which is structurally very interesting. They're not massive. It's not like we jump 5 years into the future or whatever at any point. But we do have these jumps into the future, which sort of like, you're aging them up in real time. So there's an element of the movies. Their ages come to them as the movies go on, as the movie even goes on in this case. But yeah. Does Peter Parker murder puppies and children at the weekend? That's my next question. Because while I understand he's like the weird kid at school, the utter hatred that everyone in the world has for this nice, quiet person is fucking baffling. The bus driver
it's mad,
sees him chasing the bus and goes on extra blocks to make him run. I understand the bullies being really cruel to Peter, but why does every single person on the planet just fucking hate him so damn much?
Yeah, the bus driver in particular, like you're in a position, surely, like of authority almost. Like,
they hate him. They hate him so much, Chris. My only explanation is he murders puppies on the weekend. That's the only thing that makes sense to me. They just don't show it. I don't love, as another note, the graphics, the DNA graphics that appear in the transformation sequence. I think they work fine in in an opening titles of a movie. But the weird bits of the DNA coming together while he's sleeping, I feel like it's on the nose even for this movie. But two, they don't look very good. They don't need to be there. That's needless. We should talk about special effects. I think this movie actually holds up quite well for its time. There is moments when he doesn't have the right weight to him because he's a fully CGI creature and he's got like these weird sort of rubber textures where he looks really weird and rubbery. And I know that, like, especially when he's like not in the costume and he's like when he's jumping roof to roof when he first gets the powers, it doesn't look great. He's all weird and weightless and it looks kind of goofy and the compositing is a bit strange. But mostly, I'd say the movie holds up. It's not perfect. It's definitely of its time. It ain't Jurassic Park. It's not seamless. But it's pretty good. It holds up. I mean, was there anything in the special effects that bothered you or stood out to you as not really looking good, Chris? Oh, I have one shot I want to talk about. It's the worst shot in the whole movie. I'll come back to that. But did anything stand out for you as being good or bad visual effects-wise?
There was a shot in the parade, the Oscorp parade, of Norman on the glider that didn't look amazing.
This movie
it was like
did,
one shot.
They did the bold thing of shooting some of this stuff in the outside in the daylight. It's bold.
Yeah. Even to be fair, there's a lot of glider stuff in that sequence that works, and I can't point to you. I can't go this specific moment, but I remember one glider shot feeling it looked a little green screeny, but nothing major.
Worst shot in the movie by an absolute mile. I'd have deleted the entire scene because the shot is so bad. No, I wouldn't. But it's got to go. I can't believe it's in the. I can't believe they left it in the movie. There's a shot where it's right after the Macy's Day Parade, the Goblin attack, and Spidey kidnaps MJ for no reason, swings her a few blocks away, then puts her on a random roof instead of just putting her down on the ground at the scene. It's just an inexplicable choice. But he's swinging her through the city, and there's a shot where she's clinging to him, and it is clearly a mannequin wearing a Spider-Man suit that she's clinging to. Like, it doesn't move. It's completely stiff. And she's, like, looking at him all scared and looking around, but she's clearly just got her arms wrapped around a mannequin in front of a green screen. It is the worst shot in the movie, and I never don't notice it. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. It's fucking awful. It's like, for a movie that's so technically well made, it's outstanding in its shitness. It's real bad. It does. You notice it. Put it that way. I don't know. Did you notice that shot? I'm guessing not.
No, I didn't notice that shot. I noticed the. I don't think the. And obviously, this is a problem right up to No Way Home. The landing logistics. When Spider-Man is sort of carrying someone, or just in general, no one can land in these movies and make it look seamless and smooth, can they? No. They will often land, and you think, why did that not break one or both of their legs?
Yes.
But like I say, you could point that same criticism to No Way Home, so I don't think that's ever really fixed in the Spider-Man in media.
No, I agree. On my other notes, I want to talk very quickly about the wrestling sequence and the brilliance of that being how he gets his name, but also the reveal, right, of him doing a little montage. And by the way, the montages in this movie are amazing. The montages are so good in this movie, but the one of him fighting crime and the one of him designing his suit. But having him design the suit in front of you and then not showing him, you're like, they're going to show the suit. They're going to show. I mean, obviously in subsequent viewings, I knew, but in my first viewing, he's going to be in the suit. He's going to be in the suit. And Bruce Campbell's all like, the amazing Spider-Man. And then the curtain drops and he's just in his pajamas and he spray painted them and a ski mask. Oh, it's good. Oh, it's so good. It's what a great, funny, brilliant moment. Immediately followed by some casual homophobia and Toby's worst, typical bad joke delivery. I don't know if we should talk about this. Oh, we should probably. It's not appropriate. It wasn't cool then, not cool now. But that's a cute outfit. Did your husband give it to you? Yikes. Just yikes. Like, my insult to you is that you are gay. That's brilliant. Cool. Just not cool, Spider-Man. Not cool. I don't know. Do we have anything we want to add to that? Just that we don't like it? Is there anything else to say?
No, just that we didn't. Yeah, just didn't like it.
Stands out.
Not stands out, but not. Given that any movie from this period that's not full of shit like that is a slight win. So at least it was just that one moment of it.
Yeah. Oh, it follows immediately. Like, what are you doing up there? Staying away from you. Oh God. Someone stop making Toby speak when he's in that suit, please. I mean, it's not a good line, but my God. The edit from the Green Goblin explosions to the graduation is one of my favorite edits in all of cinema. It's the Green Goblin blows up all these people, and as the explosion, the fire leaps into the air, it morphs and fades into the graduation caps being thrown up. It's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. No notes. Do it. It's great. I have made notes about the Norman mirror scene because I wanted to talk about the pacing of that scene. I really love how slowly they turn it into an actual back and forth conversation. Like at the beginning, we have all these beats where we see his face contorting from one to the other, and then slowly we get that faster and faster, and then we do the thing that Lord of the Rings would do, like the same year basically, which is the when Gollum is talking to himself, where the cuts get quicker, and then it is just reverse shot of a person talking to another person. But we've taught the audience to understand it is him talking to himself. We're just now cutting the beats out to make it feel like a conversation between two people. Brilliantly made, brilliantly edited, just wonderful on all fronts.
Yeah, great choices. Great choices with that stuff.
Yeah, Jameson not giving up Peter Parker. We haven't talked too much about Jameson. He's great in this movie, but I love when the Green Goblin threatens him and he's like, the stuff comes in the mail. Like, what a lovely little moment to reveal that, like, he's actually not a piece of shit. That's so good.
Especially because it comes... Yeah, I wanted to point that out as well. Because it comes after him essentially screwing him over a little bit.
Yes.
And, being... 300 quid, basic freelancer wage, get out of here. And then... he's just got no reason to do that other than to... Like, Peter Parker's right fucking there. Yeah. But he is still protecting him and lying for him. I thought that was brilliant as well. I thought that was fantastic.
Ruthless businessman, but decent human being. That's what we're getting to essentially. We should. I mean, look, the best jokes in this movie, top to bottom, are all J. Jonah Jameson's. Ham, that's the best I can do you. A Christmas ham. It's everything he says is just so funny. I mean, I can't imagine anybody embodying that character better than J.K. Simmons. He's great in this movie, and they write good material for him too. All the best jokes in the movie are in his mouth, basically. So, I love. I'll never ever forget crap, mega crap, mega crap. Mega crap, Chris. What does that even mean? I love it. I wrote another note. Right, the thugs that chase MJ. And that Peter beats up in one of the cooler scenes, the shadowy rain fight. What were they trying to achieve, right? Because one of them makes kissy faces, which implies one thing, but then another one pulls out a knife like he's about to murder her. But also, if they were trying to rob her, they're going about it the wrong way. I'm trying to find the whole scene. I'm like, what's their motive? Is it robbery? Are they a murder cult? Is it the dark thing implied by the kissy face? What's happening in this scene? I never quite figured. Just thugs doing thug stuff. They go home at night and they go in and they sit down with her. She's like, "Good day at work." He's like, "Yeah, we tried to harass this lady. Spider-Man beat us up. We were just being thugs, What were they trying to do? I don't understand.
It is horrific. It does feel just ridiculously... I mean, obviously it's meant to, but I don't know if there needs to be so many of them. Do you know what I mean? That's what really... feels terrifying about it, and unfortunately very fucking real, probably more so now unfortunately than it did then, but just the notion that there's so many of them, and you sort of feel like there's only so many of them, so Peter has more, so Spider-Man has more people to beat up.
Yep, that's exactly why. They wanted to give him a good fight scene with a bunch of guys, so it was a bit more even-handed than just him beating up one guy where he'd go down in a punch. 100%. And it's a great scene, but I just think we could have just had one of them be like, what money do you have or something? They're like a little mugging gang. They're doing a mugging. I think because not giving us I think the reason you worry that it's darker than the rest of this movie is as a scene is because they didn't just clarify that it's a mugging or something. And I think they should have. I honestly think they should have. I think that's just cleaner and fits better. But the lack of clarity about what they wanted is very strange. But anyway. Oh, we haven't really talked about the ending. Let's talk about briefly the ending. The climax, I should say. So Peter, given the choose one or the other situation, and then just being like, fuck it, I'm Spider-Man, bitch, and puts his sunglasses on and saves both. That's amazing. The drama of that's great. The tension of that's great. But my God, do I love the New Yorkers coming to Peter's rescue. What are you doing? He's trying to save a bunch of kids, and they're all throwing stuff at him. There's the line added because of 9/11, which we'll talk about. That you mess with one of us, you mess with all of us. But other than that, I love that scene, top to bottom. Do you have any thoughts on that sort of climactic battle before we get to the sort of the gritty battle that comes following it?
Yeah, I mean, one, it shows that it is possible to save both. Step it up, Bale's Batman.
Good point.
But two,
Good point.
I'm joking. This is very different circumstances. They were both there in the same location for one.
Yeah, actually, this is more of a criticism aimed at the Green Goblin for his shit plan than it is a criticism at Bale's Batman. Basically, the Joker did a better job.
Goblin really made it possible to save both. But he also, and this is what I love, the humanity of Peter Parker. He goes to save Mary Jane first. Like, he does ultimately save both, but he undeniably prioritizes saving Mary Jane.
I thought about that. The reason I actually think he didn't, and I'll tell you for why. If he went the other way and he gets to the kids, he can't swing that over to Mary Jane's side. The reason he goes for her first is the physics, because he can grab her. She's one person. She's light. Swing under and hopefully be just in time to grab the Roosevelt Island. The what do you call that? The tram? Not a tram. What do you call it? The word will come to me. The word will come to me.
Fairground cart.
Oh my god, I've been in that, by the way. I've been to the Roosevelt Island. It's the rail car. What do you call that? There's a word for it. Okay, no, I'll finish my point and then I'll come back to that because my brain's dying. But I think he chooses MJ on purpose because he knows he can grab her, still swing under, and do that way. So yeah, I think so. Cable car. It's called a cable car. It's a cable car.
Cable car. That's it. Yeah. That's a good interpretation that he thought about all that in the moment, and that's fair. He's got Spidey sense, but I like the interpretation that Peter made that choice.
Yeah. He was like, "Fuck those kids. I'm saving MJ
because he's flawed." No, but he's flawed. Like I don't think he's instinctively thinking about the negative of the kids. He's rushing towards MJ. Although slightly undermined by, he leaves early on in the movie during the parade scene. He leaves MJ hanging up there for quite a while, doesn't he? Like, he does go off and fight some other battles and then return to her. Yes. Like I'm pretty sure he saves the I think it's a mother and son, maybe. He saves them and stuff, and then returns. But what was the point? Oh yeah, the fact that he saves both. Yeah, it's New York. Yes, I'd forgotten about that again. Like, and I sort of associate in Maguire's movies the notion of the city acting for Spider-Man. There's obviously a very iconic moment in the second one for that, and that would have stuck out at me. And I also actually like what they did with that idea in Garfield's movie as well, where they create the cranes for him and stuff. But I really liked that element. I loved it. I thought the city protecting Spider-Man was a great idea.
I can't wait to get to that iconic line in the second movie where the guy says, "He's just a middle-aged man." You know, it's my favorite. Anyway, he's just a man dealing with back problems. Anyway,
it's so funny because for a man who's praised Maguire quite a bit, you have also fundamentally criticised every time he's in the suit, said that he shouldn't speak when he's in the suit, and have criticised his general age and appearance in the movie. Well, but other than that, you're a big fan.
It's the movie insisting on making me think he's young when he's not is the bigger problem. Why? Well, he's just a kid. He's not a kid. That's an adult man. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. Anyway, the last two very quick things I want to talk about. First of all, I want to talk about the music. This might be one of the. I mean, in terms of superhero movies, this is the greatest soundtrack I think a superhero movie has ever had. I will stand by that. I think Danny Elfman did some of his absolute best work here, and I know that we are talking in a world where Superman has the theme he has, and I know the music obviously from Tim Burton's Batman is incredibly iconic, and I know Silvestri's done great work on the Avengers theme and stuff, but there's the music in this somehow conveys the themes of the movie it's not just exciting music for when an action scene is happening. It's that those tones somehow imply the line, with great power comes great responsibility. Like they do. I don't know how they do it, but they communicate that. It's glorious. It's exciting when it needs to be exciting. It's exciting. It's sad when it needs to be sad. It's unusual. It's not a traditional movie score while also feeling very traditional in places. It's perfect. It's one of the greatest scores ever created for a movie, but it's definitely one of the best and most iconic superhero scores. And I think Danny Elfman did a wonderful, wonderful job here. And Danny Elfman's made great music for a lot of great things. You know, like I said, the Batman movie, it also has an amazing soundtrack. But Christ, I cannot compliment the music in this movie enough for helping. All of the tonal stuff we talked about as well, all assisted by them, by this wonderful score. So just properly understood the assignment, nailed it, 10 out of 10, no notes. Danny Elfman just knocking it out of the park, just batting 100. Crazy good, crazy good.
Yeah, and obviously, if we're talking about the music, I am so high, I can hear heaven.
R.I.P. to our headphone users.
Absolute tune.
I think as well, on the note of the action, very quickly, just the last thing I want to say is I do love that Sam Raimi doesn't have...
Someone told me love would all save us.
I love that Raimi doesn't ever have action for action's sake in this movie. There's no point in which the characters just sort of needlessly throwing punches. It's always in sequences where other things are happening, or there are clear goals, or there's tension for other things. So where, like when Spidey is, having the fight at the Macy's Day Parade, he's saving the kid from the balloon. The Goblin being there is like an obstacle to him saving people. Where with the kids and the Goblins punching him at the Brooklyn Bridge, he's saving people. Like he's not actually interested in fighting the Goblin more than he is saving those children. And when they meet in the burning building, he's in there to save someone, and then he meets the Goblin. And as soon as the Goblin throws those things, he's like, that fight sort of escalates because it's a survival thing. The fighting in this movie is used really sparsely, but really complements quite goal-driven action, obstacle-driven action, where there's a problem to solve or a person to save. And that makes the action sequences in this movie way more compelling than 1,000 people blasting lasers at each other. And I'm not even pointing at a specific movie there. I'm just saying like a big bombastic sky beam with people shooting lasers at each other isn't an ounce as compelling as, Peter jumping into a building to save a child. Or even from the here you go, Chris. I'll do a compliment to the Amazing Spider-Man. The scene I always remember from the Amazing Spider-Man, which is Garfield Spider-Man crawling into that car to save that kid and taking off his mask. Yeah, just beautiful. Like that's Spider-Man. That is truly understanding Spider-Man, and I think this movie does that in the action as well. So yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, it's great.
Do I have any other notes?
There you go. Will you just admit that it's a tune?
Yeah, it's a good song.
Okay.
Less so when you belt it out of tune, but in general, yeah, it's a good tune.
I saw a clip. I don't know who to give credit to it, but I saw a clip of two. It was a podcast, and they were talking about that song. And someone was saying that, they were like, the amazing thing about that song is it starts, and you just think, there's no way a weirder sounding voice will appear, and then all of a sudden, a weirder sounding "someone told me." It's very funny. I've not done it justice.
I mean, that's been true all podcast. With your singing, the song isn't the problem, Chris.
I've not even done. Have you noticed? I've not even attempted the chorus.
Yeah. Anyway,
and they say that a hero can save us. Can't do it. No. Not gonna stand here and wait.
It's the bit that follows that where he sort of like crones into the next word. Hold on. It's like the hold. He doesn't say the word hold. He sort of like he makes a noise in place of that word. Hold on.
Yeah. There's not.
It's so strange.
There's not much gap either. No. Like I'd like to see a live performance.
Hold on is a sound. Yes. It's not even a word to Chad Kroeger. Let's do this. Let's move on. Look, it's a great movie. You should watch it. It's an absolute brilliant film. It's one of the most iconic superhero movies of all time. It will continue to be. It's not going anywhere. I think in 10, 20 years' time, people will have somewhat forgotten Amazing Spider-Man, and to some degree, maybe even some of Tom Holland's work. But this will live forever because it's just so classically brilliant, and it has stood the test of time for a good reason so far, and it will continue to do so. Like Christopher Reeve's version of Superman, Richard Donner, I should say, really, a version of Superman, and Tim Burton's Batman. This will stand the test of time as a definitive and iconic interpretation of this character that is deeply true to his comic book roots and understands the character so thoroughly. A very entertaining romp of a film. You should, if you haven't seen this movie, although at this point you must have if you're listening this far, you absolutely should. There's no excuse at all.
I'm excited because we always end up sort of, we always end up sort of ranking when we do trilogies, and I'm very intrigued because I would have always said, actually, arguably controversially, I would have always put this above Spider-Man 2, and I'm going to be very intrigued to see whether that is my conclusion. Obviously, we know what's bottom, unfortunately, but I would be very intrigued to see. Huh?
Yeah, I was agreeing. We do. We know what's bottom. The question will be if 1 or 2 comes out top. Yeah, for sure.
I'm going to be intrigued once we've critically reviewed 2 as to whether I would say 1 is still better, because I just think this movie it's just so masterful in all it balances and achieves.
My feeling has always been that 2 is the superior film, because it lands the very last thing this movie tried to do but didn't succeed at, which is the sort of the mentor-mentee dynamic between our hero and villain, which is a part of Spider-Man's mythos. Not always through the same character. Sometimes it's through the Lizard, Kurt Connors. Sometimes it's through Doc Ock. Although that's a more modern thing because of the movie. But he's had mentorish relationships with other villains in the past too, so they like to play on that. It's a classic part of a Spider-Man story, and I think that movie does that better while doing all the same stuff this movie did quite well. So my memory is that it's a superior movie, but we'll see. We will see. I think the villain is a better. I think Doc Ock's a more compelling villain in general as well, because I just think he's got a proper motive. It's not just he's mad. That's a part of it, but we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it when we compare the two in the next discussion. So it's time, Chris. Do the thing.
Would you dance if I asked you to dance? Oh, sorry, wrong hero. Let's trip it up.
I'm gonna give you some trivia, and by some I mean all the fucking trivia. This is going to take a while. Buckle in, everyone. I mean, you can see the length of time left on this podcast. I can't. I have no idea how long this is going to take. This is one of the longer ones I've done. Now, admittedly, I was going to say this is one of the longest research sessions I've had to do to make one of these, but to be fair, my original sit down for this was 3.5 to 4 hours, and then all of that work was lost and I had to do it again. The final tally on the actual sitting down to do it again to finish was 6.5 hours of research. So look, Jesus. Yeah, the movie has a crazy history. So buckle up. So let's talk about it. All right, it won't surprise you to discover this movie was in development in one form or another for 22 years. So I'm not going to go into the details of every single potential version of this, but I'm going to cover all the tentpole versions of this movie that nearly existed to try and summarize the long journey. So obviously Superman comes out in 1978 and was a massive critical and financial success. So many of the big studios were sniffing around various comic book properties to negotiate the rights to use these characters. So it won't surprise you to learn that Spider-Man's story starts in 1980. 1980. So the king of the low-budget B-movie, Roger Corman, was the first person to acquire the rights in 1980 and began developing the film with interest from Orion Pictures as the studio behind it. He had a 5-year window to make it happen before the rights reverted to Marvel. He actually brought in Stan Lee to help write the script, and this version seemed to have... great idea, right? Like... Credit to Roger Corman. It's the guy to get. It's the guy to get. It had Doc Ock as the main villain and themes regarding the Cold War, which was ongoing at the time. The word is, though, that Lee and Corman actually ended up clashing a lot over matters of budget, because Lee wanted the big Hollywood blockbuster that he felt Spider-Man deserved, and Roger Corman, is the king of the low-budget B-movie. I mean, he famously made the Fantastic Four movie from the 90s, the one that never got released, that sort of like hour-long one. We made this to keep the rights one. So it was a tricky process, and the development was so slow that they actually missed the window to capitalize on Superman's success. It took so long that then Superman 3 released in 1983, and it was such a disaster commercially that it made it impossible to convince any studio to commit cash to it. So the rights actually revert back to Marvel in 1985. Corman never got to make his version of the movie. So, in 1985, the rights are then sold to a guy called Menahem Golan and his cousin Yoram Globus. Now, they owned the Cannon Group, who were famous for making shit movies. And they'd bought this property for just $200,000. But these idiots purchased the rights with no knowledge of who Spider-Man is, or should be. And they weren't really interested in finding out. They decided that Spider-Man was a horror character. That was the impression they had. They thought he was like a man who turned into an 8-armed spider monster like a werewolf, and were developing their version of the film under that notion. So they had a script and everything. They hired Leslie Stevens, the creator of Outer Limits, to write the screenplay under this premise, and it was wild. So Peter Parker was a photographer. That part was true. But he was subjected to a mad scientist's experiments, which transformed him into a large tarantula-type monster. I don't know if at like the full moon or at night, but in moments when it was inconvenient. And he would be suicidal and fighting a collection of other animal-based monsters created by the same mad scientist who created him. They even hired a horror director, a guy called Toby Hooper, who was apparently working on the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 for Cannon at the time, and he was set to direct the movie. But word got back to Marvel, and Stan Lee demanded Cannon produce a brand new script closer to the source material. Now, I couldn't find out any information as to why Stan Lee had the power to just call them and be like, hey, you know that character you bought the rights to? Yeah, don't do that. But maybe there was some level of creative control included in the license agreement, like they couldn't stray a certain distance from the source material. I'm not sure, but apparently that call happened, and they rethought their approach, thank God. Although I am, Portal got into another universe, I would like to see the... I would quite like to see the werewolf interpretation of Spider-Man in a sort of canon 80s B movie. That does sound kind of fun, to be honest with you. But anyway...
Yeah, I can see, if you don't know anything about it, you hear the basics of the premise, I can see why you'd get a horror vibe from it.
But when you're buying the character, you think you'd have a quick, you just open a comic book for a second, just read a log line. They bought the character. They say that $200,000 for a character they didn't even know who it was. Madness.
Yeah, but you say that, but then you cut to someone choosing to buy a house, and you fucking walk around it once for 10 minutes just looking at it going, and then you bring your parents in and they walk around it for 10 minutes going, and then you commit to 40 years and 250k. Like, it happens.
It's true. I don't know if we just got an insight into the state of Chris's home or not. I'm sure.
No, not at all.
Did you find rot in the foundations or something?
No. Although we did once try and a cabinet fell down in the kitchen, and we tried to lift it off and discovered that there was a plug socket plastered into the top of the cupboard, and they did lay linen on top of lino floors on top of carpet, so that was also a bit of a disaster. So I mean, maybe it's a reflection of that, but it does make me laugh. Like, I know people, and I've heard them debate whether to get a haircut for longer than they debated whether to buy a house. So it's always amused me, and it applies to renting as well. It's always amused me that the biggest purchase people make is one that actually we don't spend enough time on sometimes. Yeah, because it's the same with rent. You just walk around once and go, no, it's nice. Like, I'll commit to living there.
Yeah, so it's true. It's true. So they committed to get back to the canon version of this movie. Yeah, we're in the world of canon now. We're moved on from Orion. Okay, so the new writers get brought in to fix the script from the werewolf one, and they give Peter his normal power set. costume. They give him Doc Ock as a mentor turned villain. They call it Spider-Man: The Adventure Begins, right? And the shift in tone leads to Toby Hooper, the director, to drop out because he's the horror guy and he didn't really want to make that version of the movie. He was more interested in the werewolf one. So Cannon hire a lifelong Spider-Man fan called Joseph Zito to be the director, and he'd previously worked on a film with Cannon called Invasion USA. So it was all looking pretty hunky-dory. The main writers were envisioning John Cusack for Peter Parker at that point in the 80s. It's not a terrible bit of casting, truthfully. I quite like John Cusack. That would have been all right. The studio were also talking about Tom Cruise for the role. But the director, who would have had the main say, I think, in this choice, having to work with the writers and the studio are one thing, but the director really wanted to cast a stuntman called Scott Lever, who does, I've Googled him, look an awful lot like the comic book, especially 80s comic book interpretation of Peter Parker. And he was a stuntman, so he was in really good shape and he could do backflips and stuff. And also, he'd already made appearances for Marvel dressed as Spider-Man. So it seems to have been agreed that he was going to end up with that role before the movie fell apart. Less so are we sure about the casting for the other roles, but for this version of the movie, the rumor is they were going to have Bob Hoskins as Dr. Octopus, which is just, I think, great casting. Katharine Hepburn for Aunt May, and Gregory Peck and Paul Newman were in discussions for Uncle Ben, and Stan Lee was going to cameo as J. Jonah Jameson in that version of the movie. So I like that as well. That sounds fun. So, Joseph, yeah, I was going to say, do you have anything you want to add on the casting? Because usually you like to talk about the casting. Anything stand out to you there? It's about right, isn't it, for the era?
No, it sounds great. It's usually when we're doing this, like, we're not talking about casting for this movie. Do you know what I mean? Like, this isn't... Usually the subject is, would they have done it better? Would we have liked to seen it? But one, this is one of those movies where everyone is really perfect. And two, the version of the movie you're talking about is not this version of the movie we got. So I kind of don't... I feel there's less to say. And sort of three, to be honest with you, with the length that the trivia is this week, it's probably best I just let you talk. But I will butt in if there's anything I'm itching to talk on.
So this basically means, so what we're about to do, what Chris is basically saying is he's about to start looking at his phone. Playing a mobile game.
No. I was just about to say, but feel free to keep cutting to me to check I'm listening, because you've done too much work for me to ignore you. So I'm happy to be tested.
There will be a test at the end. I've got a multiple choice quiz. Joseph Zito works on this project for about a year and a half with that cast, that premise in mind. Eventually, it sort of becomes known as Spider-Man the movie. That Adventure Begins title gets dropped, but Cannon had also, during this time, acquired the rights to produce Masters of the Universe and Superman 4. And I don't know if you're aware, Chris, but those movies are famously huge hits. Sorry, wait, let me just check that. Oh no, complete financial fucking disasters. Which is funny because history is currently repeating itself with Masters of the Universe from the point we're recording this. It's not looking good.
It's already out.
I don't know if it's just early tracking or if it's out in America. I should check, really. Masters of the... that's a good point, Chris. You're actually right. When does it come out? Release. If it's already out or not. Release. Oh, no, it's not out until the 5th of June, so it's not out just yet. I must have been looking at some early tracking figures. But it's not shaping up good, I will say. But anyway, so Cannon put a bunch of money into Masters of the Universe and Superman 4, and they are disasters, nearly bankrupting the studio. So suddenly, their budget for Spider-Man, which was a healthy $20 million, they're like, how about 7? Can you do it for 7? So that's the same, right? So after an attempt to try and make that work, Joseph Zito, lifelong Spider-Man fan and current director of this movie, steps away. Because he basically says, I'm unable to make the movie with that money at any level of quality, which is fair. Fair. So over the next year or so, Cannon tried to get the movie off the ground with different writers and directors, doesn't quite materialize, and then the studio's financial troubles finally caught up with them completely, and the studio is sold. At that point, Menahem Golan, who is one of the two people who own the rights to this, because remember, Cannon didn't buy the rights to Spider-Man. Those two individuals did. Globus and Golan. They owned the character outright. So when Canon goes under, Golan and Golan and Globus still own it. And when Golan goes to a production company called 21st Century Film, he sort of brings it with him and renegotiates his deal with Marvel. So he basically says, I own the rights till 1990, but I've just moved from one company to the next. Can we negotiate an extension? And Globus, the other guy, he's not so interested in this, and he's actually stayed with Canon. So he'll get paid off. I'll be the sole owner of the Spider-Man rights now. So he extends his option to 1992 and is now at 21st Century Films. But 21st Century Films are not a very popular or well-funded company either. This is not to be confused with 21st Century Fox, by the way. Different company altogether. 21st Century Films can't afford to make this movie. So Golan was attempting to drum up funds to revive Spider-Man using the script, budget plan, and storyboards that had been developed while he was at Canon, because he owned them now. So he sold the television rights to Viacom for when this theoretical movie gets made. He sold the home video rights to Columbia Pictures, who were already owned by Sony at this point. So that's the first hint of Sony being involved. And during this time, while he's trying to drum up funds, the script is going under a lot of shifts. Many writers came and went. One writer said he left the project when he got a bizarre request to give Peter Parker a pet dog, which is an insane thing to be asked to do. You know, this movie needs a dog. It's just, why? Why? So in all the chaos, it becomes clear that Golan and 21st Century Film are not going to get this movie off the ground. It's chaos, and no one likes these scripts he's producing, and it's just a mess. So Columbia Pictures, sniffing weakness, offer to buy the rights outright from Golan and 21st Century Films. But that's the point, Chris, in which we have to take a little bit of a flashback. Because the story there was another story happening alongside this that impacts Columbia Pictures' attempt to snatch Spider-Man away from Golan, because it wasn't happening. So you'll remember the trivia for our X-Men episode and how that collides with this one. Because in 1989/1990, we don't have an exact date because it was multiple meetings, James Cameron is meeting with Stan Lee and writer Chris Claremont to pitch Cameron and his production company, Lightstorm Entertainment, an X-Men movie. The pitch was from Chris Claremont and the other guys involved, Lightstorm, Carol Co-Productions, Marvel. They want James Cameron and his production company to produce an X-Men movie with Catherine Bigelow directing. This would have been a huge, huge deal for everyone involved. But Chris Claremont has told this story, and it's fucking hilarious. Because apparently, halfway through the meeting, Stan Lee casually asks, "So I hear you like Spider-Man?" to James Cameron, who lights up and begins talking about Spider-Man. Chris has just sent me a number of... This is how much Chris is listening. He's just sent me a number of pictures of Tobey Maguire and a dog. Are these AI generated, or is he just a dog guy? Does he just have a lot of dogs?
No, look, what? No. This is proving I'm listening. This is me proving to you that I'm paying attention, even though I'm not commenting. Oh, I thought you were insinuating that, I was spending my time looking for dog photos. Yes, no, I googled. First of all, I googled Spider-Man dog, and turns out in the comics at some point he had a dog, so that's not as funny. And then it turns out if you Google Tobey Maguire dog, you get a lot of great images of Maguire looking happy with dogs.
He does look really happy with his dog. The funny thing is, if I didn't have WhatsApp on my laptop, I wouldn't have even known that message came through because my phone is miles away. So that's a bit of luck for you. Otherwise, I'd have just seen them afterwards, which would have been fun also. So halfway through the meeting, Stan Lee makes the mistake of saying, "So I hear you like Spider-Man," and then Cameron, his eyes light up, and Claremont said of this meeting at a panel once, and they start talking and talking and talking, and all the Lightstorm guys and I are looking at each other. And we all know our X-Men deal has just evaporated in front of our very eyes. So the X-Men movie with James Cameron producing dies right there and then, and he gets very excited about Spider-Man, right? So he wants to make Spider-Man now. He loves Spider-Man. he's already been a fan, and when Stanley asked that and they talked about it, he got really excited about the prospect of it, way more so than he was about X-Men. So as he's making Judgment Day, Terminator 2 Judgment Day, with Carol Co., he convinces them to look into buying the rights. So when we get back to 1991, and Columbia looking to relieve the rights from Golan and 21st Century Films, who are just spinning around a drain with this, suddenly in swoops Carol Co. with a much more tempting deal. Because what they say is, not only are we going to make the movie, we're going to make it for $50 million. James Cameron will be the director, and we'll pay 21st Century Films $5 million for parting with the rights, and Golan himself will personally earn $1 million from this deal to give us at Carol Co. the rights to Spider-Man, because we want to make this movie with Cameron, and Cameron really wants to make this movie, and we think it's going to be a big hit. So Golan way prefers that deal to Columbia's deal, right? But his only condition extra was that he wanted to stay on as a producer, at least in credit, because he'd been developing this movie for 6 years at this point, and he considered it sort of a pet project, a passion project. So he agrees, and Columbia get sort of cut out of the deal, even though technically they still technically hold the rights to the home video, and Viacom still hold the rights to the theoretical television release. It's gotten very messy, and you'll hear about why in a second. So for clarification, there is a script out there with Cameron's name on it, with Doc Ock as the villain. But this is actually just the current draft 21st Century and Golan were using at the time the rights were bought and Cameron's name got put onto it. He actually doesn't have much to do with that script. So people often cite that script as being partly Cameron's work. Nothing to do with him. That's just the bizarre script that Carol Co. were working with. Not Carol Co., sorry. 21st Century Film, sorry, and Golan were working with before the sale. So Cameron's version of the film is kind of infamous. He creates something called a scriptment, which is a very detailed 40-page document that outlines every single scene in detail and includes quite a lot of sample dialogue. It's halfway between a treatment and a script. That's why he calls it a scriptment. And if you want to read that, it's online, available, and it's a fascinating read. But even more so, I actually highly recommend anyone interested in Cameron's version of the movie check out a podcast called The Cancelled Movie Report. They go through the entire treatment, commenting on it as they go, but they have actors reading the lines, they have sound effects, they really bring it to life, and it's a delightful podcast in general, where they do this with lots of cancelled films that never quite happened, where the scripts have since leaked, but it's a brilliant way to learn about Cameron's version of the movie. But to summarise, it was very dark, probably R-rated, it had heavy use of profanity, a sex scene with Spider-Man and Mary Jane hooking up on the Brooklyn Bridge. It had a scene where Peter wakes up covered in white sticky webbing that implies other things. It was not a not a PG affair, I would say. This definitely would have required a 12A. And I probably would have required a 15 in the UK, to be honest. Now, Electro was the villain in this version, but he was kind of reimagined to be a megalomaniacal businessman called Carlton Strand. And he had a personal bodyguard who would turn out to be the Sandman. So Spider-Man can have a fight with the Sandman in the middle of the movie and Electro at the end of the movie. There are obviously lots of rumours about who Cameron was going to cast, but because the movie never got far enough along to do like auditions, I'm not going to mention them mostly. I'm only going to talk about one because it seems to be widely agreed upon that this was Cameron's choice, and that is Leonardo DiCaprio was going to be Spider-Man. This is backed up by the fact that the very next movie he makes is Titanic, in which he casts Leonardo DiCaprio. So clearly on the mind. I think Leonardo DiCaprio in the early 90s is a delightful choice for for Spider-Man. I think he would have nailed it. Don't have much more to add to that. There are, for us, you screaming.
No,
go on, sorry.
No, I don't.
No, please. I do.
No, I don't. No, I just agree. No, I agree with you. I think he just feels a bit more youthful, maybe, if we are now, because obviously we're closer now to the movie we got. Maybe yes. He feels a bit more youthful, maybe. But yeah,
especially in like 93, 94, like when this movie would have gone to production in 94 if this version had happened.
Yeah, so that's 3 years. That's 3 years prior to Titanic, and I'd argue in Titanic he feels more youthful than Maguire does here.
Agreed. Yeah, Agreed, 100%.
So,
I think he would have been a good choice. And actually, they still talked about him for this one when we get there. So it's really interesting. And for those of you screaming that Cameron had some other contributions in his script that end up in the final movie that we actually see, I'm going to talk about those when we get to the script for the final movie. So I'm coming to that just for clarity. So Cameron submits this script in 93, and it gets really messy. And you're probably thinking, how did this movie not happen? They spent a bunch of money on the rights. Cameron had a scriptment. He was excited. He was thinking of cast. This was surely close to happening. What goes wrong? Well, a long story short, everyone sued everyone. And it all collapsed like a legal house of cards. I'm going to list the things that happen here, right? And you're not going to believe how many people sued how many people. It's fucking insane. So Cameron had signed the deal to make the film with Carolco, but the lawyers had simply reused his Terminator 2 contract as a template, and there's a clause in that contract that gives Cameron the right to decide on the movie's advertising and credits. So when the business trades get, press releases to announce that Cameron's making Spider-Man, which they do print, Golan, the guy who only wanted credit, and all the money they were giving him, obviously, wasn't mentioned at all as a producer. So fearing he was being pushed out, he instigated legal action against Carolco for disavowing his agreement to be credited as a producer. But of course, they'd have to break Cameron's agreement to do that. Meanwhile, Carolco was suing Viacom and Columbia to recover the broadcast and home video rights that Golan had arguably unfairly or incorrectly sold. So both studios started countersuing to maintain them. 20th Century Fox, who you're thinking, well, wait a second, Fox haven't been involved in this at all. Well, Fox had a contract with Cameron that he would make his next movie with them. So they were claiming exclusivity on Cameron. Jeez. This is a fucking mess.
That one of all of them, though, I never understand that kind of lawsuit. Like, what are you like? It's gonna get settled. He's not gonna work for you, and if he does, it's gonna be under duress. And by putting that forward, he's probably not gonna want to work with you in the future. Like,
agreed. It's absolutely bananas what happened here. So the movie's in legal hell, and Cameron just gives up. Because nothing is happening. By 95, he has returned to Fox as per the contract and starts developing the movie that is Titanic. And that's how that happens. In 95...
He sat there with a lawyer, and the lawyer went, I mean, honestly, James, we could argue about this until we're blue in the face, or we could make another movie. And Cameron goes, what did you just say? And he says, we can make another movie. He said, no, before that. And he said, until we're blue in the face? And Cameron said, I think I've got an idea. That's what I interject with.
It's worth it. Every time. It's the best. So, if you're thinking, God damn, this is a mad story.
I'm so high!
God, carry on. Well, this is where it gets a bit simpler. You'll be glad to hear. Because basically... most of these companies go bankrupt and a lot of this goes away. So what happens is in 1995, a judge rules that Spider-Man's rights, they're back to Marvel. Like, this is too complicated. It's reverted. Too much time has passed. Too many people bitching about all sorts of stuff. So Marvel are now able to sign a completely, clean single deal with a studio. But in 96, 21st Century Films, Carolco, and Marvel all file for bankruptcy. So, all of that suing each other seems silly in the wake of you all going completely bankrupt. I don't really know what that was about. So Marvel get back on their feet in 1998 because they merged with a company called Toy Biz. And superhero movies did not have a good reputation at this point due to 1997's Batman and Robin. So keeping in mind that a lot of this story is tied into the success or failure of other heroes. That has been an impact on every iteration of Spider-Man we've talked about so far. So Batman and Robin comes out and no one really wants to do it in like 97 onwards. But Blade comes out shortly after Marvel get back on their feet in 1998 and studios start to become interested again. Fox were actively pursuing their X-Men movie, And this allowed Marvel, who were still struggling, they'd been saved from bankruptcy, but were still not in a good place, but it allowed them to sell their rights for Spider-Man to Sony. And obviously, if Fox are doing their X-Men movie, Marvel have sold X-Men to Fox at this stage also. So $7 million is the deal for Sony. Now, you're probably thinking, well, wait a minute, Columbia Pictures we've talked about a lot. They're owned by Sony. So yeah, that is correct. So selling them to Sony is essentially selling them to Columbia. Basically, Columbia end up producing the film. Sony's logo is there. It's a bit complicated, but like, also, do Columbia do they count as the distributor and Sony Pictures is the production company? I can't remember how it works, but one in the same, basically. It's their, it's parent company or whatever. So there were still some lingering legal complications, but I just want to clarify this one. So because they went through bankruptcy in 95, 21st Century Films sold a large part of their company to MGM, including whatever their part at that point was in Spider-Man. So Sony, as a precaution, optioned what MGM had acquired from 21st Century Films. They were just like, we don't want to get down the line in this, and MGM be like, we think we also still own Spider-Man. So they optioned every pre-95 version of Spider-Man, and particularly all of the material relating to Cameron's version of the film. Not because they wanted to use it, but because they genuinely didn't want to deal with any further legal troubles. They smelled it in the air from the history. So they put out a press release that was very clear. Cameron will not be making this movie, nor will we be using his script, but we have purchased the rights to that material from MGM to save us future legal troubles. So, here we are, Sony making the movie as we would know it today. Now, they had a list of potential directors: Michael Bay, Tim Burton, Chris Columbus, Roland Emmerich, David Fincher, Ang Lee, Baz Luhrmann, Tony Scott, M. Night Shyamalan, and Barry Sonnenfeld. All of which are fascinating choices for different reasons. The idea of David Fincher making a Spider-Man movie, or Ang Lee, or Baz Luhrmann, like, so strange. Yeah, I mean, some of those choices make a lot of sense to me. Obviously, Tim Burton has a history of having made good comic book movies, but I don't know if you're going in for Spider-Man. Not unless you want a more gothic take, which is kind of his sensibility. I mean, does any of those directors stand out to you as being a good choice for this? I'm not sure any of them are quite right for it. Maybe Chris Columbus.
It's hard to... It's hard to imagine, any... Given, we've spent the last 2.5 hours praising Sammy Boy, it's hard to imagine any director being a better choice, especially, like you say, a strange gothic Tim Burton take, which maybe is a bit stereotypical to suggest that's what it would be, given that, that's not necessarily what Batman... Well, I suppose Batman is very gothic,
yeah,
but not, not later Burton gothic. No, I think no. I wouldn't want to pop in a parallel world and see those versions comparatively to this. No.
I understand the thinking with Chris Columbus though. That's like a safe pair of a really sort of safe pair of very competent hands. Like Chris Columbus, he might not be the most you might not always recognize a Chris Columbus movie when you see it. Like he's not the most distinctive auteur, but he really makes just a very solid, well constructed movie. He makes interesting aesthetic choices, but he really has a very, very sort of dependable vision. Like his work on the Harry Potter films, particularly the early ones, are really, really great. And he set the visual tone for that whole series after. So yeah, Chris Columbus would have been maybe a good choice for this because he doesn't seem afraid of color either. So yeah, Fincher considered the job, but he didn't want to do the origin story. He was more interested in doing the night Gwen Stacy died, and the studio didn't want to tackle that for their first movie. And Columbus basically turned it down to do Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. So there you go. But Columbia Pictures head, or chair, Amy Pascal, had her own choice for a director. She really wanted Sam Raimi. He'd been a lifelong Spider-Man fan, and when he met with her and the other executives, his passion for the character was just absolutely unparalleled for anyone else they met, so they hired him. Then they brought in David Koepp? Is it Koepp? Koepp? I never know how to pronounce his surname, to write the screenplay, and he actually developed his first draft from Cameron's scriptment. And while it is obviously a completely different film in the end, a few of the loose ideas from his scriptment, Cameron's scriptment, make it into the final movie, particularly from the first act. So, Peter, bitten in the lab, after noticing that there's a specimen missing, is very close to what ended up happening. The only major change is actually in the Cameron version, it's a radioactive fly, and the fly escapes and is eaten by a spider, and then the spider bites Peter. That is needless complication. Why couldn't it be like a magic radioactive science spider? Why does it have to be a fly, then eaten by a spider, then biting Peter? That's fucking weird. I don't know why, but that is the Cameron version. Fucking weird. The version of the scene where he puts his glasses on to find his vision is worse and then takes them off again. That is almost shot for shot how Cameron describes it in his script. And most notably, the organic webbing, which we haven't talked about, and that's a surprise because at the time it was a source of much controversy. I'm fine with it. It's simpler. It gets you into it. It doesn't sell me on Peter's smarts, but for getting into the movie quickly, if he's been granted the power to climb a wall, he can have the power to shoot a web from his body. I don't see why that's not a big leap for me. Yeah, so I've never had a problem with it.
I wasn't. Yeah, the reason I didn't bring it up is because I wasn't, like I say, I wasn't so familiar with the law that I was aware that was controversial at the time. And only really did I think of it as slightly odd when they made a joke of it in No Way Home. Like, that was probably the first moment I'm like, oh yeah, okay. But, in terms of selling on the smarts, he literally creates a protective fucking suit out of, I don't know, a sewing machine. So, they do enough.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, I get, it's one of the things I do I enjoy that the Amazing Spider-Man franchise did do Peter as the scientist more. He doesn't just say he's a scientist. We see him doing it. We see him developing his web fluid and that stuff. And that's, that's pretty good too. But yeah, it was very controversial at the time, the organic webbing. A lot of people didn't like it. It's funny, they went and changed it in the comics. So we had organic webbing, which I really always chuckled at the time because it was like, they're just trying to make it like the movie.
Look, this may be controversial, but I'm sorry, I think it makes more sense. Like, surely it makes sense that all his powers come as a result of being bitten by this spider and him genetically changing. As you've just said, if he can climb up walls and that's fine, well then he has webbing, quite a big part of spiders.
Yeah. Sorry. I think you've exactly summed up what Sam Raimi's thoughts on this were, because he talked about Peter inventing the tech sort of stretching believability too far, whereas if you sort of, not lump it in, but if you sort of combine it with he got the power to climb walls and he got the power to shoot webs at the same time for the same reason, then you're asking the audience it's one less leap for the audience to make, basically. But he basically, I don't want to say stole because they owned that script. But they borrowed that idea from Cameron's draft. That's in Cameron. So Cameron is actually responsible for that choice. And Sam Raimi just very much agreed with it and insisted they keep it in for this version. So, yeah. Obviously, the other thing that's similar is the megalomaniacal, oh my God, why am I suddenly struggling with that word? The megalomaniac businessman trying to convince Spider-Man to join him in the second act. That's kind of kept. Now, in the early drafts, Cop sort of decided to keep Electro as the villain, as with Cameron's draft. But they ultimately pivoted over the course of several drafts to the Green Goblin because they wanted to include that sort of dynamic, that mentor-mentee dynamic. They also originally had Dr. Octopus in a smaller role, but Sam Raimi, I combined Sam and Rami, the way I was pronouncing it incorrectly, into one word and got Sammy. But so Raimi wanted to keep the focus again on the dynamic between Peter and Norman, so that's, I think, fair and reasonable. Makes a lot of sense. In the course of development, separate work was done on the script by Scott Rosenberg and Alvin Sargent. Sargent specifically was brought in to polish the dialogue, apparently. Rosenberg, Sargent, and Cameron all technically could have received credit for the final script here, but basically they all three voluntarily relinquished their credit to David Kopp. I never know how to pronounce it. Which is more common than you think. We usually only talk about these things when there's disputes and arbitration, but often the writers just agree. They go, yeah, we didn't contribute enough to this final product to justify our names being in the credit. So, all that was left of Cameron's script was the glasses thing and the organic webbing. Sargent had some dialogue, but who knows if that stayed in it. Same with Rosenberg. So they all just sort of let David Kopp have the final credit. So, casting. Quite a list for Spider-Man. The studio considered. Wes Bentley, Frankie Muniz, Topher Grace, Zach Braff, Jude Law, Heath Ledger, Ewan McGregor, Josh Hartnett, Freddie Prinze Jr., and Chris O'Donnell. What a list. What a list. I don't like many of those, if I'm being honest. I think they're all good actors. Wes Bentley and Freddie Prinze Jr. stand out to me as the closest, but I don't really think anyone else in that list is appropriate for the role. I don't know. How about you? Anyone there jump out to you?
I think if I had to choose, I would choose Freddie Prinze Jr. I think Chris O'Donnell is potentially doing a very similar thing to Tobey Maguire. But obviously, unfortunately, my only real experience of him is in the Batman franchise.
As
not
is
necessarily a performance that is praised. But Freddie Prinze again has a youthful energy and a potential. I can see him playing the quote unquote geek, and I can see him quipping. So maybe, but I wouldn't have preferred to. It doesn't make me go, I wish we'd seen that. And again, I probably wouldn't. This movie's so good that I probably wouldn't portal gun to it either. But of the names you've named, Freddie Prinze Jr. is the one I'd be most. I'd say, well, no, I wouldn't be the most intrigued to see. I'd say could probably do it, but I have no real inclination to see it.
Yeah, I feel the same way about Wes Bentley. He's like, I wouldn't want to see it because I like what we got.
Yeah, I don't really know Wes Bentley. Yeah.
Frankie Muniz, Topher Grace, Zach Braff are all wrong for the role, in my opinion. Jude Law and Ewan McGregor. That's just, I don't put too much of a point on this, but like too handsome and charming. Too handsome and charming. I'm not sure either of them could overcome their natural handsomeness and charm to be Peter Parker. I think. It's going to be the Garfield problem, but we'll see. We won't see, but if we had a portal gun, we would. I will say Scott Speedman, Joe Manganiello, and James Franco also did screen tests for this role, but obviously two of those three got cast elsewhere in the movie. Joe Manganiello and James Franco, obviously, as Flash and Harry Osborn. Also not right for the role, either of them. I like both actors very much, but, well... We again, James Franco in a bin, obviously, but as an actor, he's a good actor, but yeah, this wouldn't have been the right role for him. So Maguire was Raimi's first choice after he'd seen him in the Cider House Rules, which is actually a film he was shown by his wife, who was like, you should look at this kid, because she smelled it on the air. So reportedly during auditions, the studio weren't completely sold on Toby, but he bulked up as well, and they were very impressed with his dedication. So he got cast with a $4 million contract with an option for 2 sequels. He was going to get the sequels at an increased rate. So the second movie, he was going to get 17 million, and for the third movie, he was going to get 15, with 7% of the film's box office. So the deal was worth, not including the profits that he would receive in residual, but for the third one, but $37 million for doing all 3, ultimately, based on the deal, assuming they continued to make them. So yeah, that was a very lucrative deal for Mr. Maguire. And yeah, you got to get the money. Someone's going to make the money. Might as well be him. So to acquire his pumped up...
Yeah,
we've had that conversation.
I would always, as we've said plenty of time, like I would always rather the money went to the actors and the people actively involved than
the writers and the crew.
Someone in a suit at a studio that didn't have anything to do with it.
Yeah, but like signed a check once or something. Yeah. I agree. So to acquire his pumped-up physique, Mr. Maguire went through a strict 5-month regimen of exercise, weight training, martial arts 6 times a week, and a high-protein meal 4 to 6 times a day. That glimpse of Peter Parker's torso before he awakens, having been superheroed, was not Tobey Maguire's body. It was a person who was in less good shape, filmed someone just a bit skinnier, basically filmed for that, with Maguire's face transposed on top of it. There's only one shot of it, but it is noteworthy that it's someone else, I think. Norman Osborn, originally Sam Raimi wanted Billy Crudup to play Norman Osborn, but he dropped out and the role then got offered to, from my view, almost everyone in Hollywood. But the notable names that I saw were Jason Isaacs, Edward Norton, John Malkovich, Bill Paxton, Mel Gibson, John Travolta, not a good choice. Brad Dourif, Robert De Niro, Billy Bob Thornton, and Nicolas Cage. Anyone stand out there as a Norman Osborn? I'm assuming that we're, Willem Dafoe is the best. Anyone there you think could have pulled it off?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's very rare that you wouldn't want to see Nick Cage's take on something, especially this role and the sort of duality to it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Nick Cage is the name that jumps out at you. I'm sure Billy Bob Thornton would also do that duality very, very well as well.
Yeah,
but
maybe Malkovich as well. I thought about Malkovich.
Yeah, absolutely. But to be honest with you, I think there's Rosemary Harris, J.K. Simmons. You can point at basically every name, apart from, it has to be said, given the critique that's been given to a certain aspect of the role, Maguire, and say that they're perfect. I think if you're forced to rank cast by perfect casting and performance to role, you're probably putting Defoe or Dunst at the top. I would, and Defoe probably edges it just on the basis of having more to do.
I think that's right.
So yes, Defoe is the ultimate case in this movie of, that's lightning in a bottle right there. So.
Yeah, and I think this movie's focus on Peter Parker makes the Tobey Maguire casting less of a problem. Like, I feel like if Spider-Man was a bigger part of the movie, then it'd be... But it's Peter Parker's movie, this one, for sure. You know what I mean? Spider-Man is such a minimal part of it. He doesn't show up for 50 minutes. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, it's... I think that's one of the reasons these movies get away with the issue I have with Maguire. So yeah, apparently Nicolas Cage has said he was directly offered the role, but turned it down in order to make adaptation because he thought that was a more interesting movie for him as an actor. There's a recurring rumor that this was offered to Jim Carrey, but I could find no substantiating evidence of that, so I'm going to ignore that one, I think, because it just doesn't seem to be right. Now, funnily enough, Willem Dafoe was not in consideration. The script found its way to him through like his agents or managers or someone, and then he had to lobby for the role. Like, no one was talking about him for this, and he met Sam Raimi, who had been leaning towards casting Billy Crudup, as we talked about at the time. And then when Crudup dropped out, they decided to offer, an audition to Dafoe. And he just blew everyone away and therefore landed the role. But he was very specific. He said he would only do it if he could wear the costume himself and perform all of his own stunts so that the character's movements would feel authentic to the rest of his performance. In the end, he performed 95% of his own stunts. He also learned how to handle the Goblin glider prop that they would then suspend on wires and fly around. He learned how to handle it in 15 minutes, which apparently was way faster than the entire stunt crew who'd been testing it and practicing with it for weeks. So that's pretty impressive. Reports are that he absolutely adored making this film. He actually specifically asked Raimi to find a way to write him into the sequel, and Raimi obliged. Like, he loved this character, loved this movie. It's always nice to hear a story about someone having a good time on a set. You know what I mean? We do a lot of and it was miserable and everyone thought it sucked. So I just really wanted to talk about the fact that he had a great time. Now,
that's great. That's great to hear.
Let's talk about the Mary Jane casting. So, look, I don't think any of these names are particularly great choices for this, but I don't think any of them are either incapable of doing it. But it's Kate Bosworth, Julia Stiles, Tara Reid, Elijah Dushku, Alicia Cuthbert, Mina Savari, and Kate Hudson. Kate Hudson was reportedly offered the part, but she Nicolas Caged it. She chose to do a movie called The Four Feathers instead of this. Before we move on to a problem, do any of those names jump out to you?
No. See what I just said about Defoe and replace Defoe's name with Kirsten Dunst.
Yeah, I agree. They looked at two other actresses, Drew Barrymore and Elizabeth Banks. Now, both of them were told they were too old to play the character. Now, I'm gonna be as polite as I can be when I say this, but Tobey Maguire at this point is 27. Drew Barrymore is 27. Elizabeth Banks
that is mad.
Is only 16 months older at 28 than Maguire. So she's essentially a year older. She's 28, he's 27. Drew Barrymore is 27 also. So whoever was casting on this movie, and that includes Sam Raimi, for sure, but everyone who was in charge of this can go fuck themselves, because that is fucked. Because instead, they hire an 18-year-old in Kirsten Dunst. I think she's 19 by the time she's shooting the movie. But she was 18 when they cast her. And then, just to add a little fuck the producers and casting people of this movie, they actually asked Kirsten Dunst, once they cast her, to get her teeth straightened for the role. She refused, which I'm very relieved to hear. She shouldn't do anything like that. She doesn't want to, and I'm glad she had the courage at 19 with a young career to just go, no, thank you. I really respect that in her. But fuck all the people making this movie for the way they cast that, because everything about the way they cast Mary Jane stinks to me.
Yeah, that's not cool. That's messed up.
Yeah, and giving a 27-year-old and an 18-year-old co-star feels icky. I don't think a 10-year or 8-year or whatever it ended up being age gap is inherently a problem if one person is like 25 and the other is 35. I mean, that's still a little not great, but that's more acceptable than 18 to 27 for me. That feels all kinds of wrong.
Yeah, it's also fucked up the double standard in terms of the male part old as fine, the female part old as not. Like, it's messed up.
Yep. Despite playing high school seniors, the actual ages of all the actors when they were filming. This is actually different because this is saying Tobey Maguire was 26, not 27. Okay, I've gotten two bits of different information here, but this one is saying Tobey Maguire was 26. James Franco was 23, and Kirsten Dunst was 19 at the time of filming. So yeah, fucked. Absolutely fucked. Right, production. Let's talk about some production stuff. So, although Spider-Man is obviously an iconically New York character, most of the movie was shot in Los Angeles. There were only 2 weeks of filming done anywhere near New York, which is quite funny to me. So, Raimi and John Dykstra, who were working on this movie together, I think Dykstra was DOP. I can't remember exactly his role in this, but they worked hard to plan all the web-slinging sequences. Sam Raimi described this as a ballet in the sky, and the complexity of the sequences meant that the film's budget rose from the initially planned $70 million to around $100 million. They actually invented a brand new camera system called a Spider Cam, which was developed to express more of Spider-Man's world and point of view. It was able to drop 50 stories 600 feet at once, and with shot lengths of just over 2,400 feet, they could shoot at 6 frames per second to convey a sense of speed. It was used in this film for just the final sequence, but was used a huge amount more in the sequels. Tobey Maguire had to have his Spider-Man outfit modified because when they gave it to him, it did not have any allowance for him going to pee, and he insisted that he would not be having to take off the entire suit every time he needed to pee. So they fixed that for him. Good work. That is correct. No one needs to be suffering to make a fucking movie. So yeah, agreed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Spider-Man's webbing was made out of foam materials and fishing line, and then was enhanced with CGI. That's kind of fun. The original Goblin design was closer to his appearance in the comics, made up of prosthetics, completely green skin, a painted chin, ear, fangs, yellow pupil eyes. And after a series of screen tests, which you can actually see on YouTube, it is fascinating. The design was scrapped, being deemed too scary for the film and not very accessible for kids. I have seen it. It is unnerving. And it was unnerving enough that Avi Arad, one of the producers, nixed it because he said, "We're trying to sell toys here, not scare children." Avi Arad, famous Spider-Man ruiner, by the way. He's not a very smart man. He's a bad filmmaker and has no sense of story. And I continue to be baffled as his involvement in any product relating to Spider-Man, even though he has been involved in the good stuff. He's also been involved in the bad stuff. And you tend to find when you look into it, he's more involved when it's bad. So, Avi Arad, famous Spider-Man ruiner. He actually was the one who suggested they replace it with the helmet. Well, actually, I've read 2 reports on that. I'm not 100% sure that's true, but he felt very strongly about it. I kind of agree, but here's my problem, and Nadia pointed this out herself yesterday. You're telling me the Goblin suit and the glider are developed as a tech thing, right? A military equipment. Why did they make the mask have teeth and big ears and a big goblin face? Why is it that? What's the army reason for him having the giant metal ears and teeth?
Is that? Yeah, but that appears after he's been experimented on, hasn't it? So could you not argue maybe that's the goblin that's created that, not Oscorp?
So you think he made the mask following his exposure to the chemical, and it wasn't part of just the technology he stole?
You could fansplain it that way.
You know what? Actually, I've just realised
your question.
You can't, because the night he becomes the Green Goblin is the night he steals the glider tech. They say that on screen.
Yes, but if we're worrying about the speed in which costumes are created and the how effective the costumes are in world, then again, Spider-Man's costume is a much bigger problem for me than
I
the
100%
Goblin.
disagree with that, because the Spider-Man costume, they jump forward in time, like it's months have passed. There's a big old montage. The Green Goblin costume. Okay, I should talk about this when we review the movie. I hate this Green Goblin costume. I should clarify. I don't like the stupid metal mask. I don't like that he looks like a Power Ranger villain. I don't like that you can kind of see his mouth, but you can't. I hate everything about it. I don't like the color. I don't like the shape. I don't like the face. It doesn't work practically in the context of the movie, and it looks absolutely shit in a just a design perspective. I don't know how this didn't come up.
I feel like this definitely should have been in your notes for when we reviewed the movie.
Yeah, no, I can't believe I didn't think to put it in. I'm surprised, but there's a lot to talk about with this movie, so I guess that just slipped my mind. But yeah, I hate that costume. I've always hated that costume. I loved how No Way Home handled it by having him smash the mask, and he's still wearing the body part is fine, because it's just like a tech suit, like a protective suit that you might wear as a pilot operating a glider. And the idea of the suit having the eye guards, the yellow things that go in front of the eyes to protect you from wind. Again, I sort of understand what they're going for. It's like a tech thing. It's like the suit a pilot wears piloting this thing. I understand that, but giving it the teeth and the ears, fucking baffling. Just utterly baffling. I've never understood it, and I never liked how it looked. So yeah, don't like it. That's why Far From Home loses the mask, keeps the body part, and has him just in the hood, but with the glider and the suit. It looks way better. Way better. Anyway, yeah. So apparently it was originally more bulky, like proper flight gear, but Defoe wanted to do his own stunts and really wanted more movement, so he asked them to streamline it, and they did. The final outfit was composed of 580 pieces and took him about half an hour to put on, which isn't too bad, actually, in the grand scheme of poor what's his face playing Nightcrawler being in like 9 hours of makeup every day. Poor bastard. No wonder he hated making that movie. Alan Cumming, thank you. Yeah, no wonder he hated making that movie. The smoke in the lab during Osborn's transformation scene was originally white and then got digitally altered to green. They tried to do it as practical green smoke because that's what Sam Raimi wanted, but they basically anytime they made or attempted to make, the prop designers tried to make colored smoke, they couldn't do it without making it toxic. So in the end, they did it with just normal, safe white smoke. And they did it with safe white smoke and then CGI'd it green.
Yeah, that's the right call. Well done, guys.
Yeah, good spot. Yeah.
Good work.
Yeah, James Franco's hair was dyed brown to give him more resemblance to Willem Dafoe, his on-screen father, but the decision was only made after filming had already begun. So the scene where Harry visits Aunt May in hospital, his hair is visibly black for no reason in that one scene. It's great.
To be fair, I didn't notice that. That's not. Yeah.
No. To their credit, they lied it quite well. And not on purpose. They didn't know they were going to make that change. But it's a pretty dimly lit scene because he's in the doorway. It's fine. I didn't know until I read it either. So yeah, I agree. It doesn't really matter. Just a fun thing. The genetically modified spider that bit Peter Parker was not a Black Widow, as is commonly believed, but a Statoda spider, whatever that means. It was chosen and painted red and blue by a person called Jens Schnabel. Sorry, I didn't pronounce it incorrectly. But the spider was anesthetized. They put it to sleep, and then they painted it, and then they filmed with it. I imagine being the guy that gets home or the lady in this case, gets home and goes, "Oh, I had a weird day at work." "Oh yeah, what happened?" "Well, I anesthetized a spider, and then I painted it." Why'd you do that? It's my job at work. It's handling spiders. Is that a regular day for you? Nah, it's pretty weird, that one. Painting a spider.
Yeah, no, even I could admit that was bizarre.
Yeah. Oh dear. So there's rumours of a bit of a rivalry or some issues between Maguire and Franco. And this apparently, according to some, stems from Franco early on joking about Maguire's frog-like features on set. It created friction between the two actors and a rivalry that, continues to this day, and Maguire has talked about in interviews since. Now, I don't care for James Franco. I'll be honest with you, I've never 100% been like, James Franco seems like a really cool guy. I had pretty neutral feelings on him for a long time, and then I've come to like him less. But Maguire doesn't have a great reputation either. And, this might be a case of two not great people clashing. What I think is really funny is I don't think Maguire was very popular with the crew. Because on the Pete Holmes show in 2013... in 2014 on the Pete Holmes show, which is a show that started in 2013, Joe Manganiello revealed that a crew member offered him $100. Multiple crew members offered him $100 to punch Tobey Maguire in the face for real during their fight scene. Fearing it would damage his career, he chose not to do it. But I don't think, assuming that story is true, I don't think that speaks well to how Maguire was perceived by the crew.
It's like a brilliant story, though.
It's a great story. Sometimes, Chris, I make a real point to be like, it's gossip, it's hearsay, I'm not covering it. But, it came from the mouth of the man himself, so... yeah, why not? Yeah, and it's a fun story.
If he's... I also don't know, I don't know what Joe's got to gain from making that up. I've got no reason to think that would be a lie.
No, nor do I. In the final fight scene between Spider-Man and the Green Goblin, the CGI artist changed the colour of the blood pouring from Spider-Man's mouth to a clear liquid because that way it sort of looks more like spit. This is done to ensure they get a PG-13 rating in America. So there you go. Okay, we got some injuries on set. I mean, look, Spider-Man stuff tends to lead to injuries. We'll cover these as quickly as we can, but it is really unfortunate. So Zach Hudson, the stunt double for Tobey Maguire, fractured his leg when a stunt went wrong after he got slammed into a brick wall. While filming the wrestling scene, Macho Man Randy Savage, who we haven't talked about, by the way, but I love his portrayal of Bonesaw. I mean, he's just being Randy Savage. He's just being, himself. Like, he's just doing his whole wrestling stick, he was good at that. So I'm happy for him to have his whole, shtick. Oh yeah, all that stuff. Great, love it. But unfortunately, during that scene, he suffered a neck injury when he got tossed into the ropes and landed on the ground head first. The moment is actually in the movie, I assume with his consent. But yeah, he was genuinely injured and hurt during that. And then really tragically, unfortunately, there was a death on the set. It was just prior to shooting in scenes at the location. Timothy Holcomb, a welder building sets for the movie, died on March 6, 2001. He got struck on the head by an improperly modified forklift. So it was being used as a camera crane, which is not what it's supposed to be used for, as you can imagine. And it fell onto the construction basket. He was riding, and then the accident happened, and he sadly passed away. He was one of the crew involved in building the sort of New York City street for the movie, like the facade, the fake building that I guess the one that MJ falls from, the balcony maybe. Obviously that's horrible. We talked about this.
That's horrendous. Yeah.
We talked about this a lot on the podcast, but things are safer now, and I'm glad movies don't do this sort of more guerrilla stuff anymore, because it's just like, fuck it. Like we hear a lot less when we review more modern movies about accidents and deaths on sets, and that is nothing but a good thing. The industry gets safer every day, and I'm glad that we have a lot of these guys are unionized and can look after themselves, and the studios are required to look after them. and we don't do as much of this hodgepodging. The idea that it was an improperly modified forklift, I assume whoever was responsible for that was fined, reprimanded in some way, because that's crazy. So yeah, very sad. That's a thing that happened. Tobey Maguire.
That's horrendous for that to have happened.
I'll move us on because I don't want to talk about that too much. But Tobey Maguire did really catch all those items on the tray. You know, when they fall. He did that for real. Yeah. Do you want to guess how many takes it took, Chris?
Oh, God. Like, what, 8, 10, 20?
It took him 156 takes to pull that off.
Well, then don't have him catch it for real. Fake it. You're a fucking movie.
Sam Raimi likes practical effects. He wants it in camera. But, 156 takes, Chris, that's almost the exact number of glasses Daniel Radcliffe went through during the course of the Harry Potter movies, which was 160. So, an excuse me to pull that off.
And they say that a hero can save us. Not gonna stand here and wait.
Okay, right. So let's get through this.
I reckon.
I've just realised the time. It's crazy late. I'm realising. Poor Nadia is waiting for tea. I've just spotted the time.
Let me just finish that one thought. I reckon Sam
Raimi
is saying to people, "Oh, yeah, fucking Maguire, he's insisting on doing this practically. He's insisting he can catch them, and that's the reason Joe was offered money to punch him in the face."
Yes,
Sam was just blaming Maguire for that decision.
Yeah, that's true. Before the movie shot, Maguire said that he never read a Spider-Man comic book, but took the role because he liked the script and he read comics once he acquired the role and he caught himself up. But it's very interesting. This is the first Marvel movie to showcase the flipping pages Marvel logo. When he first tests out his webbing, he actually ends up saying catchphrases belonging to DC characters. Up and Away web is Superman, and Shazam, funnily enough, doesn't belong necessarily to Shazam, the DC character, but actually a character called Captain Marvel, not to be confused with the Marvel Comics Captain Marvel. Baffling. But yeah, Tobey Maguire ad-libbed all of these lines. It's how they ended up in the movie. We already talked about this, but, real-life wrestler Macho Man Randy Savage played Bonesaw McGraw. In the early stages of his career, he played a wrestler. He had a wrestler character gimmick called The Spider. So it all comes full circle for him. That's very fun. During the montage of Spider-Man's heroics that featured interviews with New Yorkers, the construction workers and the guitar player were both real. Which is delightful. Just real people they found on the street and filmed. The guys that's like, yeah, I hate him and he sucks. That guy, that's real. And the guy singing, look out, woo, here goes Spider-Man. That's just two people they found and put in the movie.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Do you want to have a guess at how many minutes of screen time Willem Dafoe gets in this movie as both Norman and the Green Goblin? Take a crack.
Like 25 minutes, something like that.
It's 18 minutes. You weren't far off. 18.
Wow.
Feels low though, doesn't it? Feels low. It's time for our semi-recurring segment of Michael Jackson wanted to do a mad thing and be in a movie. We talked about during the X-Men movies he really wanted to be Professor X for no reason. He also wanted to be Spider-Man at multiple points and requested that. Never materialized for obvious reasons. Just bizarre, but there you go. It's a true thing. Now this one's going to blow your mind, Chris. I didn't know about this until I read this, but Hugh Jackman revealed in a 2013 interview with the HuffPost that Kevin Feige, now president of Marvel Studios, but I believe he was producer on multiple, Marvel movies across a period of time for both Fox and maybe Sony. He'd attempted to get Hugh Jackman to appear as Wolverine in this movie. Maybe this is when Feige was looking for Fox, because they thought, I guess, that it'd be like a fun, marketing for the Fox movie, to have Wolverine appear in the Sony Spider-Man film. And Sony are obviously not going to turn that down because it's Hugh Jackman and the X-Men movies were popular. So that was like a good deal for everyone to have that happen. So according to Jackman, that cameo would have involved a gag or a simple walk-through shot. And the problem was, not legal, but they couldn't find the suit, the Wolverine suit. So...
Come on now.
Hugh Jackman was in New York at the same time they were filming, and he said, we couldn't find the suit. The suit was stuck in something, and so when they were in New York and I was there, we simply couldn't get it together. Imagine the reality where that suit was not inaccessible and Hugh Jackman's Wolverine ends up in this movie. bananas.
Yeah, that's mad. But also, it would have opened a ridiculous can of worms in terms of like trying to top it. Do they then do a merger? Then it, if Hugh Jackman cameos in this movie, it then becomes a legal problem. I guarantee you.
Yeah. Yeah, just bananas. I think about that reality regularly, and I can't quite put my finger on like even imagining that world. So yeah, very cool. So Stan Lee's cameo was a lot more involved originally. He got cut for time, but basically Peter's in the crowd at the Macy's Day Parade, and Stan Lee's like, "Hey kid, would you like a pair of these glasses? They're the kind they wore in X-Men." Meaning the movie. So I guess only one or the other was going to exist, because you can't do both of those cameos. So Stan Lee does appear in the final movie, but his dialogue was dropped. Basically, when the debris is falling, when the Goblin attacks the Macy's Day Parade, Stan Lee gets a kid out of harm's way as debris is falling. If you noticed it, you noticed it. I guess it is a bit of a blink and you'll miss. Maybe you didn't, but yeah, I spotted it. Nicholas Hammond, the actor who played Peter Parker in The Amazing Spider-Man in '77, and I believe was the voice of Spider-Man in the 90s cartoon. I'm going to double check that. Am I going mad? Is that not true? Nicholas Hammond, Spider-Man. Let me just check that I'm not going crazy. Oh, I might be going crazy. Maybe he did a voice in the... Who was the voice of Spider-Man in the 80s show? I don't have time for this, do I? What am I doing? I don't have time for this. I just had to text Nadia to apologise.
I would say not.
But now I need to know.
Based on your earlier...
Panic, yeah. Panic. Sheer panic. Who's the voice of... Oh, Christopher Daniel Burns. You know what? I knew that wasn't true. Christopher Daniel Burns, of course. Yeah, I think he did our voice in that series, but it wasn't Spider-Man. Okay, my brain's corrected. So yeah, Nicholas Hammond, who played Spider-Man in '77, he's at the World Unity Festival, so they brought him in, which is nice. Now, I have one piece of I can't believe it's trivia, because I wasn't going to do it, but my God, when I saw this. Did you know, Chris, this is the only Spider-Man film in the trilogy that's not released the same year as a Shrek movie?
Okay. Cool.
Yep. Okay, let's blast through the release and box office stuff. Nothing to say to that. Just shouldn't be there. So, when used in the trailer, there's a shot of Peter doing a backflip onto the hood of a car. It was digitally altered in the trailer to put him in the Spider-Man outfit instead of the wrestling outfit that he's wearing in the original shot from the movie to sort of hide that gag. Good choice, I think. The owners of the billboards in Times Square tried to sue Sony Pictures for essentially putting advertisements in their billboard space. But that's obviously ridiculous, and the suit was thrown out by a federal judge in New York. Because, of course, that's fucking insane. They digitally superimposed advertisements for other companies over their adverts, according to them, but that doesn't make any sense. No, that's a stupid thing. Now, very quickly, we should talk about, in the wake of the terror attacks on September 11th. Now, as I'm saying this, Chris is sending me more pictures. Oh, no. Chris has sent me a picture of Spider-Man and Shrek mashed up. Oh, the timing. I know you didn't know, but... Oh, God. Yeah.
If I'd have known where you were going, I wouldn't have done that, obviously.
Yeah. They're very funny, though. Anyway, so yes. So in the wake of the there's another one that's just come through. They've not all sent it once. Oh, that last one's terrifying. I don't like that last one at all. It's like this sort of weird plasticky Shrek that's in a Spider-Man costume, but only half, and it's sort of infused into his face. No, I don't care for that. Don't like it at all. Right.
That's very weird.
In the wake of the terror attacks on the 11th of September in 2001, Sony recalled the teaser poster, which showed a close-up of Spider-Man's face with New York skyline reflected in it, most prominently being the World Trade Center towers. Not all the posters were recovered, however, and there are a couple still. It's written here as at large, like they're out committing crimes, but they are still available. But they are a highly prized collector's item, and it's one of those things where they were removed for a good reason, and the idea that they've become more valuable because of a tragedy is kind of strange. But it's the world we live in. Scarcity makes these things more valuable. The original trailer for this movie was also pulled. It depicted a bank robbery and a getaway in a helicopter, where the helicopter gets pulled and caught in a web, and then the camera zooms out and reveals that the helicopter was caught in a spider web suspended between the two towers. Now, Sony at the time claimed the scene was just shot for promotional purposes, wasn't in the film, but as the trailer has been now pulled. But years later, Sam Raimi would clarify the scene was part of the film, and it was actually the start of the montage. So we cut to these guys robbing a bank, they get up to the roof, they start flying away, and then the helicopter stops, slows down, and then is pulled back, and then we pull out. It's between the two towers, and then we see the shot of Spider-Man in his full costume, and then he thwips away. Which is actually, that shot is still in the montage. It's at the start of the montage, and then we go into the full montage. I find it really strange that Sony lied about that. I have no idea what they were thinking. Just that people would feel better about it if they're like, it wasn't ever in the movie. Don't worry. It's such a weird lie. When they filmed it, the attack hadn't happened. Why? No.
Yeah, I think
so strange.
Just come out and say that. Just say it was in a montage. So, like, I understand the impulse to clarify nothing's missing, but if you, or you know what I mean, to clarify the volume of what's missing, and whether it's like to clarify that it's not a major plot point, for example, but just reveal it's in this scene was from a montage within the movie. We've removed it for obvious reasons.
Other impacts of 9/11 on the movie is obviously that, you know, the New Yorkers being like, you know, you mess with one of us, you mess with all of us. That line was added after September the 11th, and as was the shot of Spider-Man in front of an American flag. I get it. Bit of patriotism. Fine. I think, you know, in the wake of a tragedy, if you want to be like, yay us, we got through a tough time, I'm not going to begrudge anyone that. That's fine. Cheesy as those shots seem in a modern context, in the context of the time the movie was released, makes perfect sense. And also, I think that you mess with one of us, you mess with all of us thing, like, works within the context of the movie anyway, forgetting the 9/11 element, because the Green Goblin's whole point is they'll hate you in the end. They're never going to appreciate you, what you do for them, so join me. Them, you know, doing that and saying that, it works regardless. I wasn't going, that feels out of place. So, the movie costs $100 million to produce and $30 million to promote. Do you want to know how much it made worldwide in the end, Chris?
How much? Give me those figures one more time.
So, it was $100 million to make and only $30 million to promote, which is a figure we don't normally have. We normally have to just double for guesstimating. So, total marketing and production, 130 million. What do you think they made?
Like 450 million, 500 million, something like that.
811 million.
Wow, I didn't realize it was that close to a bill. That's a bill. Fucking who am I?
Incredible.
A billion. That's mad.
Well, what's even funner is we actually have information we almost never get, and I'm so excited to tell you about this. So we know about that stuff. It's like Chris is determined to make this last longer. He sent me another Shrek photo. Why?
No, it's just that's probably the best one, and I didn't want to send it. I didn't want to send it during the last segment. But
yeah, okay, fair enough. Yeah, it's the final shot of this movie with Spider-Man's head replaced with Shrek's confused face. Okay, now here's some data we never get, and I'm really excited about. So we always know that a movie makes whatever it makes at the box office, and we speculate that home video is going to have an impact on the revenue. In 2006, it was reported that the film's total revenue from box office and home video was $1.5 billion. So if we know it made $811 million at the box office, we know it made another chunk of change. Was that 7 billion? Sorry, 7 billion. Sorry, 700 million in box office revenue. Sorry, in home video revenue. That's insane. Then on top of that, we found out how much they made from toys and selling the TV rights, because Sony just gave this information out. $60 million made from selling the television rights, and $109 million in toy sales. So this movie, right, considering they spent about $100 million 130 million to make. Made somewhere in the realms of like 1.7, 1.8 billion in total, if we're including television rights, toy sales, home revenue, and box office. That is incredible. Absolutely incredible.
Yeah, and that is... It's also the answer to the question, why do they keep making these movies?
Yeah. It absolutely is. So,
because to be fair, No Way Home gets a lot of credit, but I don't think No Way Home gets the credit it deserves for very specifically bringing people back to the cinemas.
Following
it gets a lot of credit as a big movie.
Yeah.
But literally, I know so many people who that was the first movie they saw following the pandemic.
Yeah, I agree. So there's also a rumor that Sony spent $100 million promoting the home release, but I couldn't verify that, and I don't know why they would spend $30 million promoting the box office, like the cinema release, and then $100 million promoting the video and DVD. Strange. I'm not sure. That seems like a lot of money. I'm not quite sure I believe that figure. But basically, this movie was a huge hit. I mean, it had the record for the biggest opening day ever. Was then broken by Spider-Man 2, ironically, and then Spider-Man 3, and would then eventually... I don't know what Spider-Man 3 lost it to, but yeah, it just kept being these movies. So, anyway, that's box office. Chris, it's time for Cars Exist. So, got two quick ones. Osborne's car that he gets chauffeured in, it's a 1963 Rolls-Royce Phantom V Special. Cool. Nice classic Rolls-Royce. The more interesting one is that the 1973 Oldsmobile Delta 88 that appears in this movie, it's Uncle Ben's car, that's Sam Raimi's actual car, and it appears in every single one of his films. It was bought new by his father in the 70s. He inherited it, and when he made Evil Dead, he had no money, so he used the car in the movie as the car in the movie because it was his car, and it was cheaper to do it that way. But it's featured in almost every movie he's made since. It even appears in Multiverse of Madness. Although I've read in a few instances over the years, he's used replicas to prevent wear and tear, or if it's been involved in stunts. But that car in this movie is his car, and he puts it into almost every movie.
Nice. Yeah, no. That's a nice touch.
And what's fun is in the next movie, there's a scene between Spider-Man, or Peter Parker, and Aunt May that takes place in their back garden in front of the garage, which is open and the car is visible. And I think that scene pretty much is only set in that location to do that. Otherwise, it wouldn't be there. I think it would be just set somewhere else, like inside. Anyway, good time, good fun time. Spider-Man, good. Next week, Chris, we'll just do this as quick as we've ever done it. What's next week?
Spider-Man 2.
Perfect. No notes. So you can get us in all the usual places. You know, we're on social media. Not really. Actually, we're not on social media. We're on YouTube, youtube.com/nothingbutstatic if you want to support us there. Sorry, Nothing But Static UK. You can like and talk, comment on the video, and that helps the algorithm. In fact, you can do that on any platform you find us. Just, if you're on Spotify or iTunes, you just like or review, heart, thumbs up. That tells the algorithm you like it, makes it more likely to share it with others. There's all the usual stuff you can do. Keep listening. Tell a friend, or if you really, really like what we're doing and are desperate to hear the episode where we cover Spider-Man 2 right now, and you're listening to this on Spotify or iTunes or wherever, you can go over to patreon.com/nothingbutstatic, where for as little as $1 a month, you can get access to our Rewind Review episodes 1 week early. So the Spider-Man 2 episode is already posted there right now. So please check that out. If you are interested, helps us pay the bills, but is not a requirement. We just appreciate you guys listening at all. So I think is that everything? I don't think we got anything else we want to add. I think this is officially our longest ever episode of Rewind Reviews.
I think it is. Yeah, I've tried to look to see if anything beats it. I can't see anything that beats it.
I cannot believe that happened. Yeah, what a shock. But anyway, thanks everyone for listening. I'm going to hand over to Chris because he ends this thing.
I've been Chris Billingham.
I've been Dan Doolan.
And this review has been rewound.